Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 39 of the Stevie Richards Show. Today we continue from last week's episode 38, talking about, as we coin it, WWECW, the birth, which was the beginning of the death of WWECW. That doesn't even roll off the tongue. But what does roll off the tongue is the Stevie Richards Show approaching 100,000 subscribers. And the reason for that,
don't you blame me.
go to the next camera angle. It's all his fault. James Romero, my co-host.
Hello. Don't blame me. Hey, I mean, it's obviously nothing to do with me as well because you've already got to 100,000 subs beforehand. What did you do with your first silver play button?
Yeah, that worked out great for me.
Well, you got a
that worked
an
out
award.
Great. No, it was awesome. It just that's why I searched you out after all that nonsense. That's your nonsense to deal with now.
It is that. I'll give you that. Where's the original silver play button award now?
Pokey's laying on it right now, one of my cats.
Oh, right. Is it just on your desk?
Floor. No, it's her little cat bed to lay on. I'm going to tell you the truth. I really do wish that I could put all this stuff behind me. I got the two belts, the BWO, the ECW tag, the BW. We used to have it behind me when I had the desk over there and I was interviewed for WSI. But this understated kind of like minimalist backdrop is really something that I want to keep. I really do like the old radio DJ kind of voiceover booth kind of look. I like that. But we're going to find spots for the plaque, and definitely you have a spot up on your wall. You have a couple empty spots up there, don't you?
No, they're full.
You'll make room for it though, right?
They're full. So this will be my fifth. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, honestly. I might. So I've got the Owen Hart book thing there. I don't know if you can see that on your camera, but everyone else can. I might just put it there and just have it just sat there.
What you should do is basically take a picture of it, like mask it out as a PNG. And then when we do hit 100,000 subscribers, we just basically track the plaque over us for the entire 2.5 hours where the plaque is over our face.
Don't you even tempt me. I mean, it took me long enough to work out how to autofocus my face and not the microphone on this camera. Yeah. Oh, man. It was
dude, if you track 2.5, 3 hours of a full episode, to track that, we literally would have to start it, and it would probably end before we recorded episode 40.
Did you ever see any of the ones with Dutch where, for some reason, he can't get the software to work to control the gimbal on his webcam? So at some point, it will just kick in, and he will just move that way, and the camera will just track him, and then just move that way. And then woe betide if he stands up, because then the camera will go, and then it will just die, and we have to edit it out every single week.
It's funny you say that because I literally put up on Patreon yesterday, I'm testing out a brand new PTZ camera that has an AI tracking, and it does about as good of a job at times. For like, no. You put the green box over your head. Now I put it over the torso, but if you put it over your head, it'll like zoom in on your eye up here on the eyebrow, like get every bit of my when I gig back in ECW.
You don't have any scars. You have a virgin forehead, you.
They're there. No, they're there. No, that's the Sony 35mm 1.8 lens with the light mat above me. That's
have you beautified yourself? Have you got some sort of beautify thing on Zoom?
No, just with lighting and camera and tricks. I made no beauty filter. I don't have the. My wife had already done that face swap thing way back, and it's horrifying. I probably should send Chris the picture to B-roll that in. It's pretty terrifying.
I can't believe you didn't.
I look like I had a stroke as the picture was being taken.
I can't believe you didn't say no beauty filter needed, baby. Why don't you just say that, man? You got to pick yourself up occasionally, for goodness sake.
I leave that to the ultra confident James Romero with 5 plaques. 5 silver plaques.
Hey, that's not true. I've only got 4 yet. They haven't delivered the. Anyway, at the moment, what are we? So we're recording on a Wednesday, which means we are. I'm just looking up the number exactly.
94.450 or something.
No. We're 99.
A few minutes ago. No, I said 99. I'm sorry. I meant 99. 99,450 or something.
Yeah, we're 99,400.
500 subscribers.
99,469 as we record this on a Wednesday morning for you. We'll get there. We're still going to push it, though.
Yeah.
Come on. Get us to 100,000, for goodness sake. Then we've got to wait a week. Oh, do you know what else we get? We get the verified tick as well. Not that that means anything on YouTube, but we get it.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm really out of touch these days. Most AEW fans think that anyway, so that'll give you another piece of ammo to think I didn't even know there was a check mark yet on that. I will say this, I'd rather have the people really enjoy the content, watch the clips, watch the full episode. So it's great to have 100,000 or more subscribers, but we really do want to put quality into each video and hopefully reach the largest audience with each video we upload here to the YouTube channel.
Absolutely, and we are going to be talking about December to Dismember today, including Paul Heyman getting fired, including Stevie Richards attempting to get fired. We're going to be talking about the matches, something about Stephanie McMahon, which I didn't clear with you beforehand, but I'm wondering if you've got a story. I figured you had a story last week when you talked about Stephanie briefly, so I made sure to put that in. We're also going to be talking about what went wrong, and this is going to be Jey Uso from actually last week, and now he's almost got like a JT Smith character where he now botches on purpose occasionally. So we're going to be talking about that, and then a couple of bits of news as well, including John Cena and Cody Rhodes sort of return promo, sort of building on last week, and also we're going to be talking about Chris Bey as well. But before we talk about anything, we've got to do the introduction proper. 100,000 subs, were nearly there, so if you'd be so kind, do subscribe to the Stevie Richards YouTube channel and get us that plaque, and then I'm going to have to buy one for Stevie as well, because they only give you one. There's my channel, James Romero, on YouTube, that I've not updated in a week, because there's not really been that much interesting news stories, but, you know, when there is, I'll talk on it. But then, most importantly, there's the Stevie Richards stuff. There is the Stevie Richards Fitness channel, there is the Stevie Richards Cameo, which is doing gangbusters as well, and also, you know, just get a happy birthday, happy bris, or whatever it is you want to celebrate, Stevie. You get, you know, a good 5-6 minutes if you want to ask Stevie a question or anything else. He will do the research. He will make it worth your while if you get a cameo from Stevie Richards. And most importantly, the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. What is going to be coming up this week? And I'm sorry, what's going to be already happening this week, because that's going to be on a Monday, and what's coming up next Monday for the wonderful people who sign up to Patreon.
I actually have to look, because we have had, by the way, the growth on Patreon is right up there with the YouTube channel. Really do appreciate that. Like I said yesterday, I just uploaded testing, you know, behind the scenes stuff with this new PTZ camera. And Monday, coming off the heels of the double dog collar match, which was very popular on Patreon, the first ever, as far as I know, intergender cage match in professional wrestling history. Luna Vachon versus myself. Lots of interaction on here. The comments on that particular one, especially with the way I trepidatiously like went to the cage, wouldn't go in the cage, walked around the cage, was just terrified by the cage. People seem to really, I mean, in this day and age of like, I guess there's long matches, but it seems like everybody has ADD. That level of kind of a build to get into a cage doesn't really exist anymore. Get into the ring, do it, and we'll have a 30-minute match. Where I would argue that told a much better story, that when I finally got in the cage, it was much like WWE ECW. It was the beginning of the end when I got in there. So, and I enjoyed the match. And of course, you know, the testicular claw, first time ever on that. Well, it wasn't the first time, but Luna was giving me the testicular claw from day one. And then the claws to the back with her metal, she had metal like fingertip things or fingernail things. Yeah, like the old goth ones, you know, I have like just one of their thumbs or whatever, that big hook thing. She had it in all her nails at one point until I begged her to please take them out.
Did she do that? Did she take them out?
Yeah. But for this, by the time we got to this cage match, it wasn't right away, but she did, you know, cut her nails down a little bit and wouldn't do the back rake. That's what I mean. When Hogan did it, like, I was like, that's funny. I mean, probably karma coming back on me. That's funny. That doesn't hurt. And then here I am every night getting peroxide and stuff on my back after wrestling. I do want to say this too, before we get started, speaking of which, because of course, back then in that ECW ring, man, staph infection, we talk about the table spots and how lucky we were. We weren't lucky that everybody had a staph infection at one point or another, but we got a lot of feedback off of that John Moxley board, you know, wrap with nails spot and being stuck in the back, taking a full minute to remove. If you haven't seen that clip, watch it. James has one on his channel, and we have one here as well.
Dutch is going to have one on his channel as well.
Oh, very cool. Very good. Welcome back, Dutch. That's awesome. But looking at this, like a lot of feedback on Patreon and a lot of emails that I received. Most notably, this person, Carmine, writes, outside of all the other dangers and celebration of self-mutilation, it would just take one nail to find its way between vertebrae disc to injure the spinal cord, leaving him partially or fully paralyzed for life. You made that point last week, James. I had a cervical dissection by having my head twisted violently in a jiu-jitsu competition. It's an unusual occurrence, but left my left arm fully paralyzed and with only 2/3 of my strength and nerve communication throughout the body. It took a full 2 years to regain full strength and mobility. The most common outcome of my injury is death. If you sever the nerve that tells your lungs to pump or heart to beat, there is no procedure to reverse that, even if it's identified immediately. This is not wrestling. I do enjoy your channel, your thoughtful commentary, and elevation of what is great about pro wrestling, avoiding celebrating this type of morbid spectacle. Fan always, Carmine. And there's a lot of people have echoed that through Patreon, through messaging, through comments, and things like that. So, and there are some people that said, well, the board was gimmicked, the nails were gimmicked. I'm like, well, they still went into his body right around the vertebrae. So I would agree to disagree, I guess, with that.
So, God, I'll tell you this, right? When I was like still in my teens, I remember sparring in judo ages ago, and I remember being, I don't know, it was on the ground, it wasn't thrown, but someone must have just had my arm wrapped around the back and they rolled me over, and I remember just landing on top of my head, and that gave me the fear for the rest of my life. With anything, basically. It's just like, it just takes one wrong bump. It doesn't even have to be particularly fast or violent or something like that. It'd just be the wrong position at the wrong time, or you twist the wrong way, or land on top of your head or something like that for your life to change forever. And I've always had the fear of that, to the point that I've been over.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Chris Bey later.
Yeah.
Chris Bey is an example of some probably not the most, I don't know exactly what happened, but not the most dangerous thing probably he's ever done. And here we are, we're going to talk about that on today's show. And always thoughts and prayers are with Chris, his family, and the people right now that are, helping him on the road to recovery.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about, as you said, Chris Bey later, but for now we're going to be talking about December to Dismember. I don't know if this is going to be a two-part. I think we're going to get through it all in one show, but we're never going to get through it if we don't start. So, December to Dismember, December 3rd, 2006, a day that will live in infamy.
At least they got that part right.
Yeah, they got...
I'm sorry to interrupt already. It's in December, so they're already... At least they got one thing going on for them.
There's one thing that I sort of half knew and then totally forgot about. I must have done, but then when I read about it, I was reminded that December to Dismember wasn't the first December to Dismember. There was actually one in the Eastern Championship Wrestling era, when it was just a show with a name, basically, but it was like back in 1993. Anyway, the ECW brand's final house shows had been on, I think, November 20th in Williamsport, PA. That was cancelled, and then basically all ECW brand house shows were cancelled from then on and moved on to, I think, the Raw brand, but it seemed to flip between the two, I guess. December to Dismember emanates from the former ECW stronghold of Augusta, Georgia. Why?
Yeah, I guess they have a bingo hall in Augusta, Georgia, so we decided to go there.
Oh, yeah. I think I mentioned that. I think I mentioned it last week where I said, I think I did, where I mentioned that ECW December to Dismember emanates from Georgia. And then when WCW finally makes its way to WWF television with that Buff Bagwell Booker T thing, they do it from Washington.
Yeah, and I said Atlanta was the very next week. So ECW, they could have booked it in Philly, but I think they knew the fans would have, especially with the card we're looking at, and almost purposely making this a failure. The Philadelphia fan, it would have been great just for the fan reaction throughout the show. They would have been, I think they would have crapped on just about everything, maybe outside of the opening tag match we'll talk about, but everything else was just like nothing. I mean, this was not even, the guys worked hard, the girls worked hard, but the presentation and the booking is an overarching theme. I've seen more effort put in the house shows to make things make sense.
Then the attendance is 4,800. Pissed off fans. 3,600 paid. The buy rate was an embarrassing for the time, I guess, because obviously the WWE Network cannibalised their own pay-per-view business. 90,000 buys, 55,000 domestic, which remained the all-time record low, including the original In Your House shows until the introduction of the WWE Network, of course. Now, possibly the lowest regarded WWE pay-per-view of all time, although maybe unsurprisingly, Vince McMahon thought it was actually a good show. Until the next day, when he received a ton of complaints directed towards WWE and DirecTV, not only for the quality of the show, but for the fact that it ran somewhere between 32 and 48 minutes short.
My count was 42 minutes short. So, and it's something for, I thought, and I'm looking at it now, like, you try to logically say, I must have misremembered that. Maybe it was 18 minutes early and you had whatever, but I could have swore this thing ended so early that it was like, oh my God, this is like not, like you did not accidentally make this show this short. And I'll say it again. I mean, that you could say selfish reasons. I would love to have been part of any pay-per-view, but I do believe myself and Rene Dupree would have had an excellent opening match that would have warmed the crowd up and not gone almost 30 minutes like the opening tag match, which wore them all out. So we're jumping back and forth, but for Vince could have thought it was a really decent show, but he had to know. He approves the formats. Of course, you had, I don't know if Bruce Pritchard was back there, but whoever you had back there writes down the times to make sure if somebody goes long or short, you add, subtract. They do that on the fly, and it's a great skill to have. And they've been successful on Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, anywhere they do any kind of televised presentation with a format. You mean to tell me that slipped through all the checks and balances and all the cracks and Vince's final approval to look at this and go, this doesn't even add up to 2.5 hours. What are we doing here?
Now, I just have to make mention also that there were only 9 ECW originals, including you on the Dark match, and including Paul Heyman as a manager, and including the Sandman, who didn't have a match but made a run-in, who came Kevin Thorn after his match, out of 29 or so performers, which is baffling. We'll talk about the opening match in a minute, but I just thought, for one, I keep forgetting that Joe Mercury was actually an ECW original, and the youngest ever ECW original, in fact, as well.
He and Christian York were tag team in ECW.
He was Joey Matthews at the time, wasn't he?
Joey Matthews, Christian York, yeah.
At any point did Taz and...
Hey, Christian York, by the way, I'm going to call him out right now. Hey, there's a common courtesy, Christian York, when we're driving up to the Arby's drive-thru, and I say, hey, man, what do you want? I got it. Don't order. He like literally ordered everything off the menu. And I paid for it because I thought it was funny at the same time. A nice rib on me.
So we talked about the opener last week between you and Rene Dupree. It's basically the only match that the fans liked. Is that about right?
That's bad. That's really bad. I mean, I don't think it's bad because Rene and I could put on a really good match. But when you're talking about the star power of WWE, obviously 20 out of 29 are WWE workers. And you have name value in the Hardys, even in Lashley, you have Rob in there, you have Punk, you have all things that are very positive. And between all those matches, the people like the dark match the best.
Basically.
Wow.
Dearie me. So we talked about that last week, so we're going to get straight into the pay-per-view itself. And it's M&M, of course, I'm going to call him Joey Matthews now, Joey Mercury, Johnny Nitro, and Melina Perez as the manager versus the Hardy Boys, who are just reunited, I think, at this point. I think we're at the point now where we thought the Hardy Boys would never reunite in 2006. So they're going to be solo stars forever. And now we're in 2025, nearly 20 years later, and they're the tag team champions of TNA currently and appearing in NXT.
Yeah, really, really strange world that, kind of like what goes around comes around. And hey, this is 20 years ago. So these guys still working and still being able to perform at a high level, talking about the Hardys, is pretty awesome. I'm sure they're banged up. I'm sure they're feeling it. I'm sure their joints don't quite feel as good as they used to. But I watched the match on NXT. What was it, Axiom or Fraxium that they wrestled on there a week or two ago? But good match. they didn't look like they lost a step at all. So this match here too, Eminem versus the Hardys, worked extremely hard. As a matter of fact, James and everybody out there, worked way too hard. Number one, for an opening match, you're supposed to warm the fans up and get them ready. You know, nice action pace, simple, and then you start throwing in the roller coaster ride and the swerves and the false finishes. But like you said in the notes, and I had talked about last week, I'm trying to imagine and saying, there's no way they opened up a pay-per-view with this tag match with 3 sets of heat. Now, I'm not talking about like 2 really short sets of heat, and then the third one is the go-home heat. This was like a mishmash of 3 different matches within the match. Did you feel that way? Like a stop-start type thing?
It's one of those things where you can see with how long the match is going that you know that they were told quite late on, oh, we know that you said you were going 11 minutes. Actually, you're going nearer 25. Off you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of audibles. Yeah, I agree with that. There was pauses, there was dips, there was dead air because there needed to be communication throughout the match to carry it from minute 10 to minute 20 and then minute 20 to like, minute 23, 24, which you're like, well, that's 3 or 4 minutes. Some of the matches on Raw, SmackDown, even some pay-per-views, like what was the match you said you had a good 3-4 minute match with this person? And I went, oh, that felt a lot longer. We watched
not Crash.
Was it Spike on Heat?
Spike, yeah.
Yeah, it was a 3-4 minute match, but it was about as full of a match as you can get in 3-4 minutes. And I gauged it. I thought we went like 8 or 9, and we weren't taking our time getting in the ring. These two teams they didn't do an Undertaker or current like overseas Raw entrance down a mile long ramp, but they took their time getting into the ring. So this match was super, super long. And I feel like not from their fault, because the booking and whoever told them, you're not going 10, you're going 25 or whatever. That's what tired the fans out. They really were tired after this match.
I asked Joey, and Joey just went, hated it. Absolutely hated this match. I think just everyone would pretty much say they hated this entire show, even if they were on the show kind of thing as well. But yeah, not a popular match even with some of the people within the match who was doing it. And of course, Dave Meltzer would give it 3 stars out of 5 at the time. Whereas even the people who were in the match say that was one of the worst matches ever. Not one of the worst matches ever, but they were just put in such a untenable, unwinnable position, especially as an opener. Who does an opener for 22.5 minutes?
Yeah. It was done by design. I'm going to keep repeating that. This was not done by accident. It was done on purpose. This was literally, I believe this was the execution of the new ECW and Vince for saying, I think it was a good match, or I think it was good, whatever. I feel like that's him playing a little game that he knew right ahead of time. That was going to be it. It was the end of the tax year. We can write them off. Let's get rid of them. We can't carry it over to next year.
Now, before we go through with the show anymore, I want to ask you, and I'm really putting you on the spot, I guess, here, I suppose, the basic rules of putting together a tag team match. Now, even as somebody myself who's been watching wrestling over 30 years now, I know that WWF or WWE tag matches are nearly always exactly the same. I can never quite put my finger on why they're always exactly the same. But you basically know what's going to happen before it happens. Can you compare WWE tag matches, how you put one of those together, what the sort of rules are of a tag team match in WWE, and then obviously compare them to other promotions and how they do it?
Hey, first of all, don't not grab the tag rope, you smartass. Yeah, the tag rope was a 6-month thing on every show. I'm going to give you a little bit of context about the NWA thing that I loved, that I feel like adds the unpredictability and adds to the consequences or the limited amount of options you have as a tag team. I'll get to that in a minute. The basics of tag team wrestling are this. Obviously, you have a tag team. 6-man's a little bit different, so we're talking about 2 people versus 2 people, okay? The baby faces are always going to shine with good wrestling double team moves. That's why it was really important for a time for you to get to know this tag team. These makeshift tag teams, especially winning the tag team titles out of nowhere, that degraded the WWE tag team division. So if you're looking at it like it wasn't as good as the NWA, because I believe NWA and other companies really protected the tag team division. If you were a tag team wrestler, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, Tully and Arn for a long time, the list goes on and on. They are pigeonholed in a way, in a good way or bad way. You are a tag team for the next year, 18 months, 2 years. WWE is morphed into the old trope in the backstage pre-tape. I hate you. You hate me. But let's go out there and win the tag titles tonight. And they do. So it's like, you know, there's no prestige when you get to the top of a tag team division. It looks way too easy. So right off the bat there. But the actual match, the babyface tag team will isolate one guy for a little bit, do some double team moves that are wrestling. No punches or kicks or anything like that. Just cool. Look at Rock and Roll Express and Midnight Express. That's probably the blueprint for a tag team match, especially with Rock and Roll Express with their babyface shine. Usually you shine a little bit on the one guy or girl, then that person tags, and say you're working the arm. Work the arm, they break it, they do something, and then tag in the other person. That person gets arm dragged, hip tossed, whatever, back to that person's arm. The tag team shines on the same body part for the second person. So they have a plan. We're going to work the arm. We're going to work a body part. We're going to do whatever we can. Then the heels, which never really happens much today, the heels cheat in some way, distraction, pull the leg, knee in the back, whatever it might be, that starts the heat. Now you isolate the babyface who took that heat spot and constantly keep that babyface down, keep that babyface away from the other corner. Tully and Arn, the Andersons, mostly NWA tag teams, Midnight Express, were amazing at cutting the ring in half. How many tag matches do you see in WWE where they don't even block the middle of the ring as the person's trying to make the tag, or make the tag and create the barrier so they can't even crawl and the other person comes in, or you just keep tagging in and out and kind of keep beating them? Demolition was actually really good at beating people down with a double team while cutting the ring off. But most teams in WWE don't do that. And we're talking about what, 20, 30 years ago? Talking way long ago. So when that happens, then you get some hope spots. Maybe if you want to play a little cute and it's not the opening match, you do a couple false tags, blind tags, where the referee puts the other babyface out and the heels get even more heat behind the referee's back. Maybe a little bit of a fake tag and the illegal guy stays in. Then you get into the comeback where basically the babyface does something desperately, double down. Right now what we have is the babyface getting to their feet, whipping you off, doing everything, and then you knock them down. No. Down, down, down. Maybe an enziguri or something simple that'll put the babyface back down. Double down. The fans are stomping and, they're like clapping their hands. Hot tag to the babyface who's fresh. Bumps both the heels, both the heels, both the heels. Here's where I'm going to say NWA is so much better. And this part, I believe, makes tag team wrestling more consequential, mean a lot more, makes people pay attention, and there's rules to what you need to stick to, like real rules that if you don't do this or you take advantage of this more than once, then you get disqualified, which has happened in NWA a lot. And I'm talking about the save. My favorite part of every single NWA tag match was you get one save in a tag match. And from the commentary, if you remember back, James, he made the save. That's it. They can't, you can't make another save. So the save had psychology that when the guy is really close to getting beat, I'm going to make the save. I'm going to use my one save up in the tag match. And now we got to go home, or something's got to happen, or make another save, and now you're disqualified as a heel. That's the part that WWE has never really focused on or promoted, is that one save.
But they do it. That's the thing. That's an internal rule that they never, or I think they may have done once.
But it never carries the commentary.
Exactly.
That's the point.
Why?
So they actually do make more than one save in wrestling now, if you think about it. Especially when it comes to and this is weird, the babyface is trying to pin the heel during the shine, and the heel will make a save. Now, I understand in theory, the babyface is really shining on that heel, and you really need to make the save because the babyfaces are so much stronger, but it doesn't translate. Then you've already used a save. Now when you come back and everybody does a save during the comeback, another thing with the save, and I'm just thinking, like you said, you put me on the spot. The saves, what are they usually in NWA? When you look back at that, and if people haven't seen NWA tag team matches, please go on YouTube and watch them. You're going to go down a rabbit hole, and you're probably going to hate current WWE tag wrestling afterwards, because the save is made, then the brawl from those two people spill out of the ring and leave the other two down in another mini double down situation that leads to the finish. Whether it's you post the babyface outside and the heel slides in and cheats behind the ref's back and the other heel pins, or they go straight home from the babyface. This is why this opening match at the ECW December to Dismember pay-per-view, they just put ECW after that because they dismembered it after that. But why this tag team match did not work, 3 sets of heat, many saves throughout the match, many interference. And I'll say this, and I really do think she was a great talent and everything, but whoever told Melina to scream for a good 8 to 20 seconds multiple times throughout the match, my guess is it's a certain guy that has a theme song, Stand Back. That guy told her to scream so incessantly for so long that it annoyed the fans. The problem is you annoyed the fans to not pay attention to the match now, or maybe shut the TV off.
Yeah, I did that.
I
did that when Daphne did it in WCW. It was like, there she is, the Scream Queen. There's where the trademark scream. It's like, I've already turned it off. I hated that.
Did I miss anything as far as the tag match? I was just trying to recall everything.
No, I'm going to give you a couple more things. Why do
blueprint.
tag matches always have to end with the match breaking down and then all 4 people getting involved, then the legal 2 do their thing kind of thing? Because especially with any tag match of any consequence, because I love the old 80s, superstars and stuff like that, where, a team would just beat another team. I miss that.
Well, I would say this. It doesn't fit in an opening match. We're going to focus more on this pay-per-view, and we're giving you examples of what should work in theory. This was definitely something that was put on all 4 of these guys, and then also Melina in the match was put on them as late. I would predict that they had at the maximum maybe less than a half hour to talk over anything. My guess is it's a lot closer to your music's hidden, give us another 10 minutes. That's what I think happened. Because somebody may have looked at the format and go, oh my God, we're over 40 minutes short. So now it's an Iron Man match between MMA and Hardy, 60 minutes.
ECW, what was the point of tag team matches where they actually stood on the apron if there's no DQ?
Yeah, that's a great point. I can't defend that. Except for the fact that Raven, to his credit, tried to bring back some normalcy and psychology to wrestling matches within the matches. Now, we strayed off the reservation from time to time, but we made a really concerted effort. And then you put us in the ring with somebody like Shane Douglas and Tommy Dreamer and other people would experience. And we would have, one of my favorite matches, we might have to do a watch along, myself and Raven versus Shane and Dreamer, Lost Battalion Hall, Queens, New York. It was 2 sets of heat, but the first set of heat was a short set, or not the first, it was heat, and then Raven tried to cheat, and then there was a kick out. Then the second set of heat started, but it was laid out a lot better and we laid it out. We didn't have 5 minutes or our music was hitting like these 4 people did, and they had to go out and just stretch time.
So from that tag team match discourse, we are still talking about one of the biggest disasters in wrestling history. But let me tell you, Stevie, there will be an even bigger disaster for you if you allow your personal data to be compromised by exposing your IP to nefarious elements who want to steal your data or overcharge you for being in the wrong region. And that is where our hero of the story, NordVPN, steps in. With NordVPN, you can protect your entire family's devices with one subscription, as well as hide your IP address and help stop data leaks, especially when using public Wi-Fi. You can access favorite streams and social media websites from across the world that are geo-blocked or otherwise region exclusive without, very importantly, losing internet speed. You get to save money and avoid price discrimination by being able to switch your IP location and see if a product is cheaper from another region. And also you get to improve your device's cybersecurity and get the dark web alerts to discover whether your personal information has been compromised. Stevie, tell us more.
Thank you, James. To grab our huge discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/BWO. We're taking over. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk. NordVPN has a 30-day money-back guarantee. The link for that will be in the description as well as the pinned comment.
Okay, so a brand new feature of the Stevie Richards show. Instead of just telling you about cutting off the ring and ring positioning, Stevie is going to show you on a diagram, a wrestling ring diagram, about ring positioning and especially tag team, cutting off the ring and everything else associated. So over to you, Stevie. What do we need to know?
Well, thank you, James. Yes, we've been meaning to have this type of segment added on to the Smartboard segments, which James has told me people will say we never do anymore. But right here, based on that M&M Hardy Boys match, we're talking about different principles and blueprints and rules, whether internal like in WWE or commentary puts it through like the NWA, which I prefer the commentary to tell the fans what a save is. So let's talk about ring positioning as far as cutting the ring in half. That is the most important part of any tag team match. Tully and Arn, the Midnight Express, any version of the Horsemen would do a great job. The Midnight Express did a great job. Who else? Heel tag teams. The Steiners even did a really good job doing that. Even though they would throw people around, they would constantly tag in and out. So what we have here is basically a 3/4 overhead shot of a ring. And say you have the babyface tag team person here, stick figure, and then you have the heel tag team person there. Now you have 2 people in the ring. I'm not going to draw my famous stick figures right now, but what we're looking at right here is basically we have the ring cut in half this way. So when you have these 2 people here on opposite sides, you cut this part of the ring in half in the middle. So with that being said, when you have that, you have somebody being beat down in the corner right here. What they're trying to do is go across and tag their babyface tag team partner. Now the heels need to cut the ring in half, meaning that if this person starts to go this way towards the partner, you can just grab the leg, you can make a tag. One of my favorite things was Raven and I would do it a lot, and because we got it off the Midnight Express and even Tully and Arn and back to the Andersons, is the person would go to step and you would basically put your legs around their ankle and they would take a face bump, almost like a drop toe hold. And then you would reach up and tag your partner and they would drop an elbow or stomp them or punch them. So basically that's cutting the ring in half where you have to do that. What people do now is basically, will literally sometimes whip them into the ropes towards their partner where they can all they got to do is just reach over and make the tag. That's a disconnect right there. So you want to keep in this part of the ring right here. If you're a heel, keep the baby face on this side and prevent them. So all you got to do is just use these 2 turnbuckles as your marker. That's the line in the sand right there to make sure they don't cross over and do that. Now, the exception is if you have a blind tag, this little thing here is the referee, by the way. So you can do a blind tag spot. I know I tried to tell Anon to create an actual icon for that, but it's in the form of a ball for other courts. But the blind tag or the false tag will be if the referee comes over to heel here to tell the heel to stay out of the ring. So you stay out of the ring. Then the tag is made here. The babyface comes into the ring, tries to get to the heel. The referee turns around, goes over, and tells the babyface, get out of the ring. As that's happening and the referee's here, the two heels drag the babyface over to the other side of the ring, cutting the ring in half, and start double teaming and beating him up. And then when the referee turns around, the one guy's out. And I said this before, even when the referee's back's turned and the referee is looking at the babyface and telling the babyface to get out, make the sound of a tag. Now it's even more heat for the heel tag team to do that. So that's why 3 sets of heat on the opening match is way, way too much. And they could have really simplified it. But then again, you get your time extended, what, double, 2.5 times what you were planning on? You're going to get in the point where there's a lot of dead air, a lot of slow moving stuff, and a lot of people talking to each other to try to stretch out that 10, 15 minutes extra of the planned match.
I'm so glad you mentioned whipping into the ropes when you're trying to cut off the ring in half, because I see that in so many tag team matches where it's so easy for the person to bounce off the ropes and just go and reach over, and they don't. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention to you, and I want your opinion on, is do you ever feel, I mean, the mostly is, and then occasionally someone will sort of disregard it. There's almost like an invisible wall at the end of each post outside. So I don't know whether it's the good guy or the bad guy, who instead of just running around and getting the other illegal man on the ring apron to, and start brawling with them, they'll sort of go to like where the steps are, one post over, and then yell, or the referee will stop them and then send them back. Is there a disconnect when people disregard that invisible wall and just start fighting amongst themselves, I guess, the illegal men who are meant to be stood on the apron, or women who are meant to be stood on the apron?
Well, there's a point of when you do it and when you don't do it. To err on the side of caution, you never do it. In other words, why jump down in the first place if you're not going to be able to get to them? And that brings the referee is confused by that too, because what's the referee have to pay attention to? Now, if you have a spot planned out that after 2 or 3 times, I'm going to jump down and try to go around because they keep beating my partner up in the corner and I can't get to them because the referee's blocking me. Then the referee jumps out. They get even more heat. There's really less is more with that. You know why? Because after the 3rd or 4th time, that you're doing your partner more harm than good. Are you the Sandman that's going to take 18 minutes to get to the ring? That's the worst best friend to have. And a person that keeps getting you beat up more by the heel tag team by trying to help you, it's almost like you look over and say, please stop helping me. I'd be happier in a handicap match right now. Stop it. It's 3-on-1 now. That's what I would say. But there's also psychology with that. If you get to a point where the referee keeps putting the babyface out that's trying to say they're double teaming, they're cheating, the manager's going after them or whatever, and then finally you had enough, you get down, run around, pull that person off and start beating the hell out of them. Then the referee comes around, breaks it up. But you see there's a certain disconnect that can happen. You got to present it in the right way where now the other part of it is if it's 2 managers, babyface and heel manager. And the babyface and heel manager can work. Keep pointing it out, keep pointing it out, keep pointing it out. Then the babyface manager runs around and jumps on the heel manager and starts beating the heel manager up. Then the referee does what? You're both out of here. Okay, I understand it. They gets a big pop. They're both out. The match continues, and maybe it's that's when, like, right after the heat occurs. You know what I mean? Like, they've been trying to do all this stuff, or at the height of the heat, and then this is probably a better time to do it because you do it in the beginning of the heat. It's just too much split focus. You do it right before the heels miss something to start the comeback. So basically, you both are out of here. It's kind of that double down, but the babyface is having an opportunity to catch their breath and recover a little bit. Then the heel turns around, tries to do something, maybe a slam, drop an elbow off the top, misses. Now we have a double down. Now a double tag happens and the comeback starts.
I've got one more example, then we'll carry on with December to Dismember. The New Age Outlaws really sort of like almost pointed out the absurdity of a tag team match when I think they did it more than once, but let's say Road Dogg, who would inevitably be the person getting beat down, then Billy Gunn can take it no more. What he would do is go into the ring, beat up everybody, then he would drag Road Dogg over to the corner, who's still got his arm like that, but he's dead, and then Billy would tag his hand and then walk in, and the referee would go, "It's good, it's fine," and then just let him back in again. And then, Billy would run wild.
I think the Rock and Roll Express would do that sometimes, not to that degree of dragging, but come in, do something, and then like basically, come on, wake up, and he would do the little tumble and do the hot tag off of that. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the way Billy and Road Dogg did it, that would make sense. Like, I don't think Billy hit people like 8 times each. He like bip one and then bip one off the apron, then drag them over and the tag. It's happening quick enough to where, in other words, they filled in, come on, and the guy's crawling into it, that build up in anticipation to the more sudden, like, wow, that's cool, I got to pay attention. And Billy starts coming in and beating everybody up again.
Let's go back to the pay-per-view that I know you don't want to, but we have to. And the next match is Matt Striker versus Balls Mahoney. Now, this is a common theme that's going on with a lot of these matches, that they're all starting with extended promos before the matches, and there was still 40 minutes or whatever it was under time. But yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about Matt, if you just want to talk about the match, or just anything surrounding this. But I mean, did you ever think in 2006 that we'd see a match with Balls Mahoney that mostly focused on working the arm?
Well, the thing with Balls is he could wrestle. And at this point, he was a favorite of Vince, or maybe he was about to turn into not being the favorite. But Vince really did think Balls Mahoney was a talent. Balls could work. Balls could wrestle. He could do spots. And you made a joke about him high flying. He could fly.
Could he?
He could come off the top rope. Yeah. He used to drop a leg drop off the top rope. So the odd pairing in this storyline, and I know it was because of Matt Striker and the heat he had and everything, and he was a really good heel. Sometimes it spilled over into the locker room, as a matter of fact. But Matt was definitely someone that they saw the future in. And it was just one of those things like, once you open up a Matt Striker with these rules and everything, you're once again purposely trying to take everything. And then, ECW went too far with a lot of stuff. But what I'm saying is, you're taking away anything that ECW fans want to see, especially from a talent like Balls Mahoney. They're not asking for zip-tied chairs, but they're asking for somewhat of a rough fighting style, strong style, hardcore type of presentation. And now you're saying, don't watch this match. We're not going to give you any of it.
You hinted beforehand, I think you've talked about Matt Striker as somebody who was, I believe, at one point banned or thrown out of the locker room at one point. Why Matt? Was it, I mean, obviously it's tough enough to be a rookie or a new face in a WWE locker room. I'm sure you know this. I'm sure most people know this. But what was it about Matt that saw him ostracized, I guess, more than most?
Well, the thing with Matt, this is what I explained before about wrestling. You can come in with a ton of talent, a ton of confidence, poise, and presence. And the first thing the locker room, especially the top guys, will look at you and say and go, who does this guy think he is? But they want people that are larger than life, that have personalities and confidence. They love it, but they hate it, but they love it, but they hate it. They can't make up their mind. I used to tell Matt all the time, for anybody that hasn't seen this movie, please watch it. He is Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption. In the prison yard, it's the scene. That's Matt walking into a wrestling locker room. All these sharks, all these grizzled veterans, all these people, they quite frankly, most of them looking miserable. And he is just doing the Andy, he's sauntering. He has a swagger about him, walking through as he, dust off the rocks for his escape later on in the movie. But that's what I said. You're just sauntering and walking and relaxed, and you look like comfortable, and they do not like that. And Matt, of course, doesn't fit in because he's a unique character, actually came from the real world as a school teacher, even though he wrestled. And it just seemed like, and maybe even that story too. Oh, you were wrestling, you love the business, and you got fired, and you're here, and you think that's enough for you to be here? I don't know. they'll make up any excuse to make anybody fit in, or more accurately in this case, not fit in. And Matt was definitely one of those casualties of being different, which is great for the wrestling business, but not being the same as everybody else in the locker room.
What was Matt's best role? Because he was a wrestler for the first couple of years, for the most part. I think he probably did a bit of managing, I guess, as well. But then he was a commentator.
He managed Viscera, Big Daddy
There you
V.
go. He commentated, hosted for a lot longer than he wrestled. And I'm wondering why, because, you know, he's a good-looking guy, kept himself in shape. This match wasn't his, obviously, best match, because just wasn't giving the fans what they wanted whatsoever in this one, I guess. But why did he transition so quickly to a non-wrestling role?
Well, you know, I would say this, Matt was a much better commentator than the wrestler, but that has nothing to do with his talent, his ability. The promos were really good. Everything he did was really good, but he wasn't viewed that way because he was allowed to do a lot more and be a lot more of himself as a commentator. I don't know if that switch or that pivot was due to any kind of heat in the locker room. I'm not privy to that kind of information, but I will say that Matt brought a really nice approach, a different voice that did fit into the wrestling presentation. And he went on to commentate in other companies after that. So I don't know why Matt's not working in the business. Is he working at all? I'm not familiar with anything he's doing, but I figured he would be commentating like NXT or another thing with them. My wife just texted me and said, aha, she wanted me to get it in.
Mm-hmm. Aha. I thought the last I knew of him, he was commentating English commentary for AAA or something like that. But I know he did New Japan. He did Impact for a while. I'm looking. I'm not.
He commentated everywhere. He was like a person that would. I can't believe that he wasn't hired at least to be a commentator for ROH. Even though they have Nigel McGuinness, he does a great job. But why he's not on TV, I don't know if it's his choice or there's just not any opportunities for him to do that.
His Wikipedia says he's currently doing something on the MLB network.
Oh wow, that's why I don't watch baseball. That's why I don't know.
Okay then. So, what do you think? The end of this match just came out of nowhere for me because I was watching it and it was about 7 minutes long. I'm just looking at the times. It was 7 minutes 12 minutes long. 7 minutes 12 seconds long. Felt like 7 minutes 12 minutes long. It was nearly all arm work by Matt, and then all of a sudden, Balls just won. So you can describe it as, Balls won. I was looking away at the time and turned around.
Well, formula-wise, theory-wise, Balls was going over. Matt got over by getting more heat on him. Of course, the way it was presented, their skill sets, the matchup itself, sometimes just like with football or any other sport, there's good matchups and bad matchups. You know you're in for, like, if you're used to watch the NFC South in NFL, you know you're going to get, okay, we're going to get 5 field goals between each team. This is going to be a snooze fest. But that's what I mean. Like, Balls also benefited, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but when we worked in the new ECW and then previous, years in other companies, somebody that can move at a higher gear to bump and sell for Balls for that gear to make them look better. Matt and Balls actually, good Lord, what in the world is that? Matt Stryker and Balls Mahoney, more specifically, they had completely same gears throughout. This was a match of one gear. Is that kind of what you're trying to? It never switched. It never slowed. It slowed down and stayed slowed down, but it never sped up to where Matt was really Balls in the center of the ring. Matt is bumping everywhere, flipping them, doing everything. You know what I mean? They'd say, oh, this is a comeback. So when you turned away, this had the same pace, the same gear, and the same lack of energy as that. That's why you were like, where did that come from?
We're going to move on to backstage segments. CM Punk warms up, and then we talked about this last week. We'll just briefly mention it because we were going to talk about something else instead. Sabu is found dead. Dead. He is found backstage, surrounded by dozens of people around him asking, what happened here? He has been attacked, apparently. In reality, as we discussed on last week's episode, Sabu had been written out of the Elimination Chamber the day of the show. If not the day of the show, a day before, a SmackDown, whatever it was, after he tore up a script Stephanie McMahon had handed to him when he couldn't perform his lines. Now, People in the comments have written saying that they were at the show, and this is just the part of the show where the show, December to Dismember, went from a complete disappointment to an outright disaster. Because at least in the main event, you had Rob and Sabu and CM Punk that people actually cared about, really, at this point.
Yeah, you don't want to see Sabu in a cage flying off the top of the cage or anything. Well, who paid to see that?
No, absolutely not. You paid to see him dead and not even know why. We've got more about that later. In fact, I'll mention this now, is that Paul Heyman, for those who don't know, was fired after the show. And then Sabu, he turned up with his arm in a sling and just pretended like he wasn't hurt at all. You know, his shoulder was moving just fine. But also, Rob, the day after December to Dismember, said on the show, "Oh, I think Paul Heyman had something to do with this," which was pointless to say because Heyman was going to be gone. So why even mention it? Was obviously it probably was Heyman, but now Heyman's no longer going to be a character on TV. Then who do you get revenge against?
I don't know. I guess he left on a high note. That's all I can think of. I do want to tell you, I preface it with this. Do you want to hear a funny story about that ambulance pre-tape? So they're putting Sabu on I already have my dark match, which we've already talked about a few times. So I had nothing to do but just cause trouble backstage. So Sabu is being put on the stretcher. You know, this is before you see him. Like I think it goes to the back. He's already on the stretcher going in the ambulance, right? Or they cut.
There's two segments. There's two segments. There's one where he's down, and then later on he's wheeled into an ambulance. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when he's wheeled in the ambulance, when they're setting up for the shot, I'm far enough away. I'm not gathered around. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even good enough to be gathered around for Sabu to help him get in the ambulance. I was in the dark match version, so I knew I wasn't a part of it. So as they're putting Sabu on the thing, and with my raspy voice, probably nobody even heard me, I was screaming, "Yeah, that's what you get, Sabu. Come on. Yeah, you better load him on a stretcher. Next time it's going to be much worse. I did you a favor. I was easy on you tonight." And people were like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" Just in wrestling, it's like I'm just trying to have a little fun and make the joke out of the fact that my friend, I was traveling with him at the time, my friend who was in the main event gets carted off. And I even said that right after that. I goes like, "Hey, all the people, nobody's asking for refunds after this," like real sarcastically, and walked away. And did people ask for refunds? Or is that the complaints after the show, the direct TV
Yeah,
one?
there were complaints. I know for a fact there were complaints. I guarantee some people asked for refunds. Probably people asked for refunds after a good show. Why not? Did you ever...
Anybody ask for refunds after the dark match?
Oh, no, Sabu hadn't been taken out yet. That was the good match that people were happy with. Did you speak to Sabu after this? Were you still traveling with him? Did you travel with him from the show?
I believe we're traveling for a little bit longer, possibly, because, like I said, he didn't have a driver's license. Kelly didn't have a driver's license, so they paid for the rental car, and I would be the driver. Like nobody had a driver's license in ECW apparently. So it was for that point. It was actually like the original ECW, so that was authentic. But they never put it on TV.
Well, everyone was on DUIs or revoked or something. Apart from Kelly, who probably wasn't old enough.
She had her license taken away. I don't know why. Or she wasn't even old enough to have a license. Who knows?
Were you just yelling that because you never know, the microphones might have picked it up and they might have said, it was Stevie Richards who did it, and then you could have at least got a match out of it?
I worked myself into a shoot. Yeah. Oh, if I could figure out, if I thought of that, see, that's why I needed you back then, but you were a kid that still hated the right to censor. But if I thought of that, and you was like, "Dude, you got to book yourself in this thing, man. Work yourself into a shoot." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be great. Work Sabu for the next 6 months."
Why not?
They won't know who to job out at that point. It'll be draws every night.
Hey, it might be a coin flip at that point. Who knows? Right. This is something I'm excited to ask you, Stevie, and it is because last week I made a mental.
Do you want me to stop? I gotta stop you.
Go on.
I gotta stop you. There were times the coin flip actually happened.
No.
Yes.
Tony Gurria had a coin.
The coin flip between who's going to go over between me and Val and me and Dreamer. Because Paul got jobbed out so much that they would sometimes, I heard, flip a coin. I mean, that's fair, I guess.
Hey, you have a head.
It was the Harvey Dent two-headed coin, though. I picked tails every time. That's the difference.
Did you ever see the coin being flipped, or is that a rumor?
I would have flipped the coin for him. That would have been great.
Ah,
Yeah.
dear. Okay.
I would have defended this goal. I defend this goal. He receives. I defend.
Yeah, you want to go that way on the first half because the wind is something. The sun's in your eyes in the other way.
Hey, it's tails, you smartass.
I hope it was Tony Greer flipping. Okay, so something I made a mental note of last week. You made something, I don't know what it was, some kind of comment about Stephanie McMahon. And I thought there's a story there about Stephanie hanging around backstage, or just, how she would interact with people, or just, I don't know, just WWE policy at the time of what they wanted from a talent or not. And it just seemed to, I don't know if it just struck you as odd, or it struck me as odd, that, or maybe I'm just like tying ideas together or reading too much into what you said. But specifically, Stephanie McMahon not only pushed a promo on a wrestler, Sabu, who couldn't perform on, and it made no sense for his character to do it anyway. I mean, that's a Vince directive who wanted to get him to talk. It was essentially a total bait and switch for the fans. And I just sort of think, why would WWE, maybe this is a rhetorical question, why would they shoot themselves in their own foot like this to get Sabu out the match? And then later, I believe they were feeding to the dirt sheets that the reason really was, hey, we've got too many baby faces in the Elimination Chamber. Someone has to go. It's got to be you, Sabu, the death-defying one.
Well, I don't know what I said about Stephanie, but I would say that she definitely was in on the gag to destroy ECW, knew exactly what ECW was. They already made their money on that DVD. If you look at every brand too, this is why I don't understand why they didn't continue to run ECW. It was NXT before NXT in a way. They had new talents coming up from developmental, doing different things and trying to resurrect careers that they hadn't done anybody creatively, favored. They haven't done any creative favors for anybody. So it was a chance to get back over. And then mix in the ECW guys, which everybody knew. The ECW originals were not long for this. They were morphing into just a third brand. But getting back to ECW, that DVD sold a ton of units. And the way ECW did their tapings before Raw, before SmackDown, I'm not sure if they did both, but it was a tape show in a building before you do the main show live or taped. Mm-hmm. It was actually, when you consider the expenses for talent, for production, for whatever they do, it was actually the most profitable brand out of the three. The investment was really low. They were already there. Most people from WWE were working ECW and also WWE, so the talent was already there on the show in the building, and we were able to run on a skeleton crew of ECW guys that weren't getting paid much at all. The rest of the people were already under contract. So that's what it did. That's a Joey Styles and Tommy Dreamer thing, that they were happy that ECW was actually, when you scale it, was way more profitable in a lot of ways because it was lower overhead to run. That's why the mystery of maybe the old man just woke up one day and said, nah, I'm not dealing with this. When we go in to the next year after this December pay-per-view, we're just, absorbing whoever we want to, move them to Raw, move them to SmackDown, or just release them. Maybe it was a headache. Maybe Vince was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Okay, let's talk about Stephanie McMahon. What were her roles in WWE or WWF, sort of as the years went by in the 2000s? Was she always backstage from, because you joined WWF in June of 99, July 99?
June 99.
Yeah, what were her roles back then, and how did they sort of evolve over time?
I couldn't quite put my finger on, as far as what her role was at first. All I think it was just like with Shane. And I give Vince credit for this. He had his kids working in every department, everything from the ring crew to the whatever department in the office, and doing every job within WWE to learn the business. When she was there, I'm assuming it was at the tail end of her. When I got there in 99, they had already done all the ministry stuff, the corporate ministry, and him being the person, it was me, Austin, me all along. She was part of that angle. And then she just seemed to be backstage when I was there. Not full time, but as time went on, and then they made her, I forget the actual title. They made her vice president of creative or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm not sure. But then she was there. And then obviously I remember when Hunter went through the pallet that had the nail in it at the Garden versus Mick Foley. Remember that versus Cactus?
Oh, the Rumble.
He had a puncture, in the match against him. I remember when he was on the stretcher afterwards and they were looking at him and they were trying to take him to the hospital to see if he needed stitches. That's when everybody was clued in that they were together, the way they were interacting, how worried she was and hovering over him. After that point, I remember seeing her a lot more backstage and it made sense from a personal standpoint with Hunter. But then it just morphed into her being someone in creative, then the head of creative, and then just somebody that would pay. She never, as far as my matches or anything I did, ever produced anything, directed anything, handed me a promo. She would be very, very courteous to me. We would say hello. She would ask me what I'm doing today and blah, blah, blah. But that was the extent of it. And if she was with Hunter, I would say hello and get the hell out of there. Because that guy never gave me a good vibe ever.
So what's her role in WWE's version of ECW, if any then? Because if Stephanie's trying to get Sabu to do promos, I don't know if it was at the pay-per-view or, shortly beforehand, and that's why he was written out. But was Stephanie involved at all in WWE ECW?
Yeah, I mean, I saw her there, but she's in the same building as another show that's going on. So the creative, the agents, everybody else, they were kind of pulling double duty. And maybe that's another point. The writers had to work on a third show. Little did they know what they had in store in the next few years. They would have just taken another 1 hour show at this point. But writers, agents / producers, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Shane to some point. I don't know when, I can't even tell you if Shane was backstage by this point, because in the beginning, like I talked about at One Night Stand, Shane was supposed to be a big part of that. And of course, during the invasion, he was part of that. And in that part, somehow we should do a poll. Comment below. Which was worse? The WCW ECW invasion with ECW or WWE ECW? It's a tough call.
It is a tough call. We should.
They were both set up to fail. We can agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Did Stephanie, this might be an unfair question because obviously she's got to work in every single department. She's basically being groomed along with Shane at some point to take over the company, I guess, when Vince leaves. And ironically, neither one would. In the end, it would actually be more, of all people, The Rock. More than Triple H.
Well, Triple H for a time, too. So that's the odd part. Not even your own daughter is not even having anything to do with operations.
Okay, so this might be an unfair question, considering I know you weren't too close to her and what she did, but did she really know what she was doing as far as, creative? Did you value her creative opinions as best as you knew what they were, I guess, at the time? Was she the right person to be heading a creative team in WWE at that point?
Absolutely not. The numbers speak for themselves. The downward trend since she took over. And in retrospect, I believe Vince realized, I don't know when, maybe early, maybe later on when it really, because think about it, after people say it was the sale of WCW and the merger and no competition, that was the beginning. But then creatively, when the McMahons took over, especially Stephanie as a writer, as the head writer, and you have like legitimately trained television writers that have to defer to her, that's kind of, yeah, it's a recipe for failure. The downward trend, the numbers, nothing personal against Stephanie, but the personal part that made it tough, Vince could not fire her. Once he hired her and put her in that spot, how can you hold her accountable? And ultimately, how can you fire your own daughter, your baby girl, from a job that actually you've been grooming her maybe to do, so it could denote not only her failure, but your failure to get her ready for the spot. That's where, I mean, Russo says it all the time, and it's a great point. Booking wrestling is somewhat different than writing a television show. And in this day and age, it's got to be a good mixture of both, leaning on television product, television format, and things like that. For all I know, and this is purely speculation, did Stephanie write this pay-per-view or have a big hand in writing the pay-per-view without having the knowledge that you were going to be 40 plus minutes short. You just put it together, and that was it.
I think from a fan's perspective, mine and others, that I think people always thought that Shane would be the person to take over WWE when Vince said it was time, which obviously he was never going to say it was time unless he was forced out. But then Shane leaves in 2009. He comes back in 2020, 2016 he comes back, and I think he leaves in, was it 2021, maybe early 2022?
Well, the Rumble where he tried to politic to book himself to go over in the Rumble. That was the last time we saw him. He got fired. He got released by Vince.
That's exactly the point I'm going to make, is that, hey, Vince did actually fire his own son, although he wasn't groomed in the same way that Stephanie was to, take over the company, I guess, at some point, because they would clash heads constantly, Vince and Shane. But then when Shane apparently did start getting a bit of power and a bit of pull, the first thing he did was try and put himself over on Brock Lesnar. Amazing. But no, he was going to... Hang on. I'm just looking at event namesake match in 28 as a face lasting until the final 3, but was eliminated by the eventual winner, Brock Lesnar. But yeah, apparently he received enough criticism for that, but then he wanted to win or eliminate Brock Lesnar or something. It's and he's nearly 50. And he goes red, the second he enters the ring, and sucking wind really badly, but he still wanted to do that. I mean, that was enough to apparently keep him on the payroll, because if memory serves me right, he was still getting paid something like $800,000 or $900,000 a year from the company after he was fired.
Yeah, but I mean, Shane paid his dues as far as the money's concerned, doing everything else. And obviously, he's going to be favored to some degree. Not, there is a double standard when it comes to Shane and Stephanie. And I can see that. You can be a lot more telling your son, if you're a father, hey, you're being a jerk, you're fired, you're crazy, you can't do that. But if you have a daughter, you're going to be a little bit more subtle about things and try to give them extra chances. And remember, it was a package deal. Stephanie got into the head of creative, and I don't know if it was exactly at the same time, but in the end, or at least in the end of that, Stephanie and Hunter both were in corporate positions of power and also major TV characters together. So if you fire her from creative, what's that going to cause right there? I just thought once she was hired, I was like, there's no way Vince, with the affinity he has for Stephanie and the way he kind of babied her more than Shane. She didn't totally baby her. He still had her pay her dues and do the different jobs, but he was definitely giving her way more grace than he gave Shane. And that's very, very obvious.
Just with Stephanie day to day, I mean, was he you said before she was pretty friendly and everything. Was she, pure business, I guess, or was she, approachable or, affable?
Well, you have to be careful if you're going to approach anybody in the McMahon family about anything. Because you go to her and you go, is there any way I can do? And obviously everybody is trying to get to all of them. So they have to be shielded in some way, like with her, with other writers, and Hunter, if he's chief, COO, chief of operations, what are you going to talk to him about? So, that's the kind of thing that made it confusing. Who do you talk to? When do you talk to him? When's the right time to go over the writers' heads and go to Stephanie? Because guess what? You go over their heads, try to get your business done. You better make it count, because now the writers are going to have the knives out and never write for you again, or write you into something very, very bad. If you get Stephanie at the wrong time, if you talk to Hunter at the wrong time, God forbid if you catch Vince at the wrong moment, you're done. That's the whole dynamic with that. Now, saying hello, how are you? Thank you for bringing me in. It's cool. What we're doing tonight is really cool. Thanks. I'll be available all day. That's the professional business part of it. Stephanie would never be like, how should I say, Shane hanging out with the boys and catering, getting in the ring, doing whatever. Shane, Stephanie, I think Stephanie and Hunter's approach to having somewhat of being shielded from the talent was good. Shane was one of the boys. But then again, I think Stephanie was more put in creative because she may have more sensible approach to certain angles and story. Think about what Shane has done as a competitor. Shane loves the big stunts. Shane loves the hardcore stuff. Remember on Raw Underground? Shane loves MMA and street fights and octagon type stuff. I don't think Shane had the mind for the 80s wrestling storytelling that Stephanie and Hunter did. Not saying they were great, but they had more of their pulse on how to tell a long-term story. But you would go to Shane to say, you know what would be cool? You come back with that.
One more thing. Was there anyone aside from Sabu who, Stephanie singled out or wasn't a fan of?
I would probably guess if she laid eyes on Balls Mahoney and didn't get it. Vince loved it and then he didn't. She may not have gotten it. And I can't say that Stephanie did too much writing that I knew about. Like you said, like, did she ever come up to you and tell you, you're doing this? This is what we wrote promo-wise. Now, she might have wrote Sabu's promo, which I would love to have read before he tore it up, because this is Sabu cutting a promo trying to sound like Stephanie McMahon. That's what I would guess. Nobody can write the voice. That's why, like Steve Austin, a lot of times, give me the bullet points, and I'll say it with my words and in my voice. And that's what's missing today from wrestling.
Okay, back to December to Dismember, and the next match, I actually wrote down Elijah Pope, I meant Elijah Burke, and Sylvester Terkay versus Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke, the FBI. Was it even Tony Mamaluke? I mean, he was Nunzio, Little Guido was. What was Tony Mamaluke's name here? Am I going crazy?
Yeah, he was always Tony Mamaluke.
He was something else in TNA, wasn't he? When
he was Mamaluke in the Italians there with Disco, Vito, and him.
Tony Luke, he was.
Oh, they called him Tony.
In TNA.
Tony Luke.
Yeah, I think, when they did that 2010 ECW.
I was going to say Tony Luke. They're lucky Tony Luke's down in South Philadelphia didn't sue them, because there's a Tony Luke's cheesesteak place.
I'm starving as well. Don't talk to me about food, I tell you. Okay, then, so this match, is there anything to say about it apart from just dead silence?
Yeah, this is something representative, once again, of the ECW originals are going to be phased out. And this is the final straw in doing that, the final phase, the final insult. This is getting rid of all the ECW originals in one form or another. Anybody like me that's already kind of WWE connected can hopefully be safe after this. And I was for about 3 years after that. But no, this is all on Elijah Pope and Sylvester Terkay. Let's say. Oh, man.
Of all the people that they changed the names of, and they did not change the name of Sylvester Terkay.
Dude, that guy was a beast. I remember with the Extreme Rising house show stuff, the night before I wrestled Luke Hawx, I wrestled him in New York, and then that whole travel day was crazy. Lots of wrestlers have great travel day stories. There are nightmares, like a 12-hour travel day. And I put Luke in position for the Stevie bomb, and Sylvester came and hit me with a front kick to like my ribs. And you see if my spine didn't shift to that WrestleCon in 2017, dude, I felt that up until after the next match, the end of the next match. It was so tough. That dude, his hands were as big as my Rodecaster Pro in front of me here. He's just a monster. And I can't believe that he fizzled out after ECW. He didn't do anything. He was released not long after that.
Yep. Next match, Sean Daivari. I could have sworn it was the Great Khali versus Tommy Dreamer, but no, it's Sean Daivari with the Great Khali versus Tommy Dreamer. And at this point, one of the ECW originals of all ECW originals, Tommy Dreamer, he came out and got no reaction. WWE or whoever had booked the show had murdered the crowd within 1 hour with just everything they'd done. Sans you and Renee actually having a good match and getting the people on the feet. So here's the thing, right? So as a boy watching, I suppose a very young man actually watching this, Tommy Dreamer was, by the time WWE ECW rolled around, was dead. They just wouldn't give him a win at all for any reason, it seemed. And knowing just how great he was, connecting with the crowd and just engendering sympathy and just being a sympathetic character that you can get behind, with a real emotional roller coaster, and just somehow WWE just killed it with him. It was already there.
You know what the most amazing part about this all is? At this point, I don't know the exact timeline, but if I'm remembering it correctly, Tommy was in the office during this point too. He was in talent relations. So he was figured in to some point, or maybe they were just doing this because they wanted to be full-time office with that. I know he was resisting that. I know there's a little bit of going back and forth about him giving that up in the ring. And maybe this is a message like, okay, you want to wrestle? We're just going to continue the trend of burying ECW originals and killing two birds with one stone. I may be speculating on that, but I remember that there was something where he's standing, you know, obviously he left WWE. He left the office job because he wanted to still be able to work. And that continues in 2025. He's still in TNA doing the same kind of stuff. This was heartbreaking for me in a way because outside of Daivari, big fan of ECW and Dreamer, got to work Dreamer, got to go over on Dreamer on a pay-per-view. When I seen that, and I remember like they were dead from the tag match, but they were also dead because they knew, I think deep down the fans knew the ECW guys are getting buried on this show. They're not going over in any way. I'm not getting what I wanted, so I'm just going to sit here and I guess get my money's worth by attending the show. But you're not, and the Elimination Chamber also, it had, you know, we're getting to that. It had its little pops here and there, but they were dead for the Elimination Chamber. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be bringing that up quite soon as well. Now, I did have some questions about the Great Khali because you worked him. We're going to save that for a future episode, Take a Drink, because we've just got too much else to talk about on this show. But I do want to talk about your match with Great Khali at one point. But just at the end, Great Khali gives Tommy Dreamer his choke bomb thing on the steel ramp so hard that Tommy bounces. I just sort of think, like, for a show like this, why give that kind of, I mean, why do it ever? But why give that kind of bump to a show like this that, one, nobody's watching, and two, no one will appreciate, and it won't even lead to anything?
Well, I don't think it was an audible. I think it was meant to do that. I don't know if they were going to do an injury angle with Tommy, but I know Tommy cares sometimes to a fault, and a little bit of that mark comes out, a little bit of the wrestling fan that wants to do extra to make the moment. And the only reason we remember it, I didn't remember until I watched it last week, and I was like, oh, that was stupid. But at the same time, like, you already beat the guy. You already beat Tommy. You already did the job. You had to like basically piss on his grave, for lack of a better term. Like, if there was a way to bury Dreamer after already burying him, there you go. And I still think Tommy wrestled maybe on the next taping where he was there. So they didn't give him time off or an injury thing. He definitely wrestled soon after that. That wasn't part of like taking him out or anything.
Next up, we have Mike Knox and Kelly versus Kevin Thorn and Ariel.
Yeah, sure. Just put two heel tag teams together against each other. Good job, everybody.
Did you know, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think it would have made any difference. Like, it would have got the crowd.
It was sure as hell it couldn't have been worse than putting two heel tag teams against each other in an intergender tag match.
During the entrances, Shelley told me this. Shelley and Kevin Thorn, she was Ariel at the time, used to tell each other how much they hated each other during their entrance when they were sort of acting to be in love, but I don't even think they particularly got on. Or you know, at that point, they didn't too much. I did prefer Mordecai because I was researching Mordecai for something else. And I thought, man, at least Mordecai had something going for him. And then for whatever reason, as you say with Vince McMahon, just one day he woke up and decided he hated Mordecai and he had to go straight away.
Well, do you think the Mordecai gimmick was way too close to The Undertaker as he was still in the company full time?
I thought that was the point. But apparently it was never the point. And that was Kevin Thorn. I can't remember his real name, but that was Kevin Thorn's thought process, that he wanted to be the anti-Undertaker. That's what he was going for. And then the writing team said, no, that's not what we're going for. And then he got into a fight at a bar. And then the guy who got his nose broken or whatever ended up suing the company. And then Vince looked at Mordecai and went, you're not worth this. Jobbed him out to Rey Mysterio and just sent him back to OVW for 2 years. And then back with Kevin Thorn.
Well, how could you know he didn't have any kind of connection or Undertaker type presentation from all the vignettes you did, which were just like the Undertaker's? Hey, you got blonde hair and you got dark hair. You're going to work a program. That's pretty much what they did. He has dark hair. You have blonde hair. fight. I guess.
But it seemed obvious enough to me. But apparently that's not really what was in the plans for them. And then Mordecai just disappeared. But the crowd actually mildly cheers for Kelly versus the Ariel face-off. And then Taz completely loses his train of thought during the commentary because of Ariel's skimpy attire, which quite frankly is the norm these days. But back in 2006 wasn't quite.
Well, the story for me was they literally, once again, here's the theme. How do you accidentally put two heel acts in the same ring against each other and expect the fans to have any sort of care for one or the other? And then Kelly gets mildly cheered when you've been promoting her doing the exhibition gimmick and Mike Knox as the jealous boyfriend. Then you got the vampires. Then you got the vampires who don't get along and hate each other and tell each other on the way to the ring. This is going to turn out awesome. This is match of the year.
Let's talk about Kelly for a second, because obviously she was one of the models who was picked out of a catalogue by John Laurinaitis.
Hey, this one over here looks good. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, basically. Now, not to put too fine a point on it, was she, I mean, how old was she? Like 18, 19 when she was picked up by WWE? She must have been a lamb to the slaughter for a lot of the guys there.
That's up to them. I don't know how old she was, and maybe that's tells the story about me, because I had to drive her around. It was myself, Sabu, and Kelly. You want to talk about one of those? What did they used to do in WWE, where they would put the GoPros up and they'd follow the talent that travel? That would have probably been some good or really terrible stuff. But her, myself, and Sabu all traveled together, and then for the time in ECW, she seemed like a nice enough girl. I don't know anything about that, because I knew with the beginning of this ECW, which meant the end of this ECW, that I might be out of a job by the end of the year. And I thought that I would definitely be out of a job after this pay-per-view.
I've just looked up her birthday. She's younger than me. That's depressing. By a month. So there you go. But she's also 38. So she was born in January 87. So she would have been 19 when she was hired by the company.
That's an incredibly difficult spot. I talked about that many, many times, even at 23, 24 years old in the old ECW, being young with just a limited amount of TV and the one pay-per-view, that first pay-per-view in 1997. I felt immense amount of pressure, and we weren't making any money either. I can't imagine going right to WWE from nowhere, even though she was an OVW for a short time. I think it was her and Alicia Fox, I believe, were hired at the same time out of the catalog. Mm-hmm. So she gets put on TV.
Was it the same catalog?
I don't know. It's like, I got lots of catalogs. So
I bet you do.
So
well, I bet you do.
So with that being said, like, you put a 19-year-old girl in this show, you put her on TV, you're expecting her to be an exhibitionist and learn how to dance, and we all know like what that looked like. With that she was every bit of 19 in those segments, like, what do I do and everything. And I don't know if this is a Mandela effect, and if I'm misimagining this, and I'm hoping it's true. I'm almost not, I would say lower, 97% sure that I saw Vince McMahon on the stage teaching Kelly how to dance like a stripper.
Oh, please.
Get that on camera. Put that on the pay-per-view, and it will get 5 stars in my book.
We've put it. There was something else. The Sandman turns up at the end with his. I hate that entrance music that he had in ECW. I mean, just killed his character. Anyway, he turns up. Like the only cheer of the pay-per-view so far that actually was more than like 10% was Sandman turning up briefly. Okay. Hardcore Holly at some point has already been told by Paul Heyman that he's replacing Sabu. Right. Elimination Chamber.
I want to bring this point up.
And I know for a fact that.
Just bring up a point about this. Sandman and ECW and all this stuff, the music or the lack thereof really hurt it even more. In 2025, with TKO and now WWE and them using licensed music so much, do you think if they brought back ECW today, they would have the Sandman coming out to Enter Sandman, Dreamer coming out to the official Man in the Box? The Hollywood and music connections are much better with TKO and the people behind it, Nick Khan, Ari Emanuel, all these people, I think Sandman, they would have done a true representation, at least from the entrance music and all that stuff of ECW.
Yeah, I didn't mind the Tommy Dreamer's Man in the Box version too much. It was quasi close to it. It's like same with War Machine and Taz, and but then there was Balls Mahoney, which was his version wasn't too bad, I guess. But yeah, Sandman. They didn't even bother trying to imitate Ed Sandman. It's like, I don't know why they just didn't dip their hand in their pocket, because if you don't have the song, you don't have the Sandman.
Yeah. Hey, do you want a little clue for everybody out there to know something about who's getting pushed and who's not getting pushed? And it was really, it's a very minor detail, but it means a lot. All of our music, the ECW originals for the most part, were either the Jimmy Hart change a couple notes kind of thing, you're making it sound like a Timu version of the actual song. Or you just have what I have, which is just regular, generic, creator wrestler type of entrance music. Then CM Punk, then John Morrison, then who else? Elijah Burke, or Elijah Pope, as you would call him. They had music, actual music with lyrics in it. They put effort into their entrance music. And then Sandman, you see, just give him a generic like guitar riff or whatever and repeat those same 2 or 3 chords. You knew subconsciously who gets pushed and who doesn't by the entrance music as well. Did you ever pick up on that?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got a quote here from Sandman, by the way, just so it filters right into this.
Start with yeah.
I hated it there, says the Sandman. I had no friends. Everybody on TV wants to get as much time as they can, but they had to tell me to stop going home early. Always 5 minutes matches. And then finally the ref tells me, Kevin Dunn says, do not go home early. I went home early every single match.
There you go. Hey, Sandman, Hack, I was your friend. What are you talking about? If he said nobody was my friend, I was like, who you calling a nobody?
He was, don't you worry about that.
But that place does make you feel like you're on an island. That place does make you feel like you're compartmentalized and you're all alone in that. And that's the thing. Don't go home early. I mean, it's the Sandman. You're telling the Sandman to pull time and wrestle. He could wrestle if he wanted to, but why? I mean, dare I say, that tag match appearance that he did was probably a better presentation of the Sandman than putting him in a match with Matt Striker, because I think it would have been the same result as what we saw.
Now, Elimination Chamber, Rob Van Dam versus CM Punk versus Test versus Hardcore Holly, not Sabu, versus Big Show versus Bobby Lashley. Before we get to the match, Paul Heyman walks out with his security. I believe they were the Basham brothers. And he drags out another promo, because there are so many promos just to drag out time here, and they were still 40 minutes or so early. He talks about the Elimination Chamber, how Sabu is gone, and that the Big Show will lead the new WWECW for a long time. Big Show would then retire 4 days later due to back and knee injuries and retrain to become a boxer. I've got a feeling at Hulk Hogan's behest for some reason. And then he wouldn't return to WWE until early 2008 when he found out he absolutely was not a boxer. Because apparently he could get like half the move, he could get the basics of boxing down. But as soon as he took a hard shot, he just went out. It was like, it's not for me. So anyway, Heyman specifically says Hulkamania dies when Hulk Hogan dies, and the Woos die when Ric Flair dies, but ECW will live forever. I don't know if, looking back on this now, I think that Paul Heyman had basically already agreed with Vince that he was done. And it almost sounds like, an epitaph for ECW, I guess, at this point, if you look back on it.
Yeah. I mean, Paul was definitely, from the beginning of the show, whatever I witnessed, you could feel and see the frustration from him. I didn't know if it was going to lead to him walking out, but I do remember, like right after the show, seeing Paul walk out, and at least he walked up to me, shook my hand, and then walked out and said goodbye. Not like, see you tomorrow or whatever, or just nothing like he would do. He gave me the cold shoulder a lot during this. But he came up, he goes, Michael Manna, goodbye. And that was it. Then he walked up to the whatever loading dock and he was gone.
We're going to talk about more about Paul quitting afterwards, but the Elimination Chamber itself, I think, I don't know if you use these exact words, but baffling, would you say the booking is? I mean, even before it got into the ring, not having Sabu is baffling enough, but everything about this seemed wrong.
It's baffling if you don't come to the conclusion it was all done on purpose. It's baffling. So many baffling coincidences happen that are strung together in each and every match, each and every finish, each and every presentation, each and every time allotment, the formatting, everything. If you don't think it was done on purpose, you will be eternally baffled. But if you believe that this was, what they call it, a lie hop, let it happen on purpose, or what I would say is a my hop, make it happen on purpose, create all the fundamental things you want to put in place to get the result that you're going to say, see, I told you so. That's what this screams from the very beginning of the brand relaunch with the zombie, which is entertaining now, but and then even Tony DeVito coming out as the priest. If you were going to do something with the original ECW and you weren't doing, and I'm not saying it just because it's me, and you weren't doing anything with me at all, which was the plan, put me back in the white shirt and black tie. Have me shut down. They never gave a character like in WWF at the time with the Attitude Era and morphing into a safer product. They never put the heat on a on-air character. They put the heat on creative, on the company, on the boys, on the product, on the presentation. Not one person saying, Balls Mahoney, Matt Stryker, no chairs, no tables. You have to wrestle, and the heat's on that guy that Balls can get to, that Sandman can get to. That's the one element I think that could have at least, okay, we get it. Now we'll watch. Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah. Paul Heyman made himself an on-screen character quite early on. But I don't really think anyone bought it because it just seemed like he had to be that bad guy on screen, despite the fact that, I don't know if it just radiated through the screen, the TV screen, that wasn't him at all, and that's not how he felt at all. And he's playing a character sort of demanded of him by Vince. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what it was? It was a figurative gun to his head, cut this heel promo that you don't, but his eyes, his body language, and even his inflection said, this is a wrestling promo that I'm being told to cut, not my feelings, because nobody could ever do what Paul did and sacrifice what Paul did on top of what everybody else did, and then turn around and say, I don't care about this brand and this product. So this promo might not have been scripted, by the way. The Elimination Chamber one might have been him going to the business for himself. He might have been a lot of promo time, but told to say something completely different. This was the swan song of ECW promo, correct?
He did one more on the sci-fi show the following day, and then he disappeared, which we'll actually get to later on in this episode as well. But goodness me, we're going to have to crack on with this a bit. Right, okay, the match itself, Elimination Chamber. So let's just talk about what happened in the match. Really wasn't much, and then we can talk about how you book it afterwards. Rob Van Dam, Hardcore Holly start out, Punk out next, immediately decked with a chair. He doesn't really do too much, Punk, in this. And of course, Tess comes in with a crowbar, he digs it into Rob Van Dam's head. Rob Van Dam runs wild with a chair, 5-star frog splashes Punk, and then pins him. The babyface pins the only two guys who this audience could possibly be invested in.
Still too many baby faces. That's what they're screaming.
Man. Okay, that one. You gotta talk about that. That's the first shocker.
What, as far as Punk, the two guys you probably wanted to see go to the end, and one eliminates the other, and you don't know who to cheer or boo for with the finish? That's kind of exactly, I've already said it. What are we doing here? And Punk, that's the weird part. Here's a theory. I just thought of it. I don't know. Like I said, speculation. But we talked about it in last week's episode. Punk was Paul's guy. He's a Paul Heyman guy, right? Do you think this was a message to Paul? To punish Paul a little bit? Because they were pushing Punk right up until then, and they eliminate Punk first?
The theory is that they wanted to get all the popular baby faces out of the way so that the only one left would be Lashley, who was winning. That's the theory. But supposedly, Heyman actually wanted Punk to win, and if he couldn't win, then he wanted to tap out the Big Show, which also didn't happen. He just lost within minutes instead.
So he pitched 2 different alternative things. They shot it down, and they had Punk pinned clean by a babyface to not have 1 ounce of sympathy on Punk that he got cheated out of the Elimination Chamber. Am I off base with this so far? You're telling me it's not on purpose?
Clean as a sheet. Clean as a sheet, he got beaten as well. So all that he was done was, well, you're mid-card here, baby, for a while longer at least. And keep in mind, this was like, what, a week or 2 after Survivor Series when he was with DX in that 5-on-5 match. And, he had a good showing there. And then straight away, he's the guy who loses first.
I don't know. I don't know. Except, and you know what? You don't feel like, yay, Rob. Like, you eliminated our favorite guy in the match. Like, no reaction to that whatsoever.
Then let's move on. Test Big Boots Hardcore Holly for a pin of either 2 or 3. Because the referee sure counted 2, and then he told Bob to leave. What was that about?
Amateur wrestling rules in the Elimination Chamber. 1 count. So he got pinned twice. I will give Test credit.
Well, he lost twice.
I'll give Test credit, though, man. He did that elbow drop later on in the match from the top of the pod. What an athletic guy.
Yeah. In fact, that's what happens next. So Test does an elbow off the chamber pod onto RVD, who has a chair on his head to eliminate RVD. Now, Test has eliminated 2 people, I think, here, and now we have Test on his own for what seems like an eternity. Keep in mind, this was on a show that went 40 minutes short, and still this space was an eternity until Lashley comes out as the crowd are chanting bullshit. Now, Lashley is next. He gets a mild cheer. Heyman security won't let Lashley out the pod, but then Lashley busts open the chains above the pod with a table that he took in with him in the pod before the match started. And then there's 4 minutes of Lashley and Test. They actually get the crowd on side for a brief bit, I seem to notice. And then with Test getting thrown into the pods, and then Lashley spears Test and pins him clean.
Yep.
That's basically it, really.
Yep. I make a great
and then
commentator
there's
on wrestling.
70 seconds. And then, the internet thing's happening finally. Then there are 70 seconds of pure silence while Lashley waits for Big Show to be allowed out of the pod. And then there is Lashley and Big Show for a few more minutes. And then spear.
Oh my God. We are talking about every filler thing being implemented. Every technique to fill time, to kill the crowd, to stretch out things. 70 seconds, and I'm sure they're thinking, because this is the wrestling bubble in WWE, Vince is thinking, Big Show, here we go. The Wild Kingdom, laws of the jungle, strongest survive, only the fittest survive. And here's the big guy in the pod, the big monster. Here's the jack guy, and they are facing off for 70 seconds, and you can feel the crowd, the rumble of the crowd, and the stomping, and the people, and the bustling, and the people saying, the anticipation, what's going to happen, and nope.
The fans are, I've got to say, because Lashley wins.
But did he really?
The fans are. I've never watched this all the way through.
No, I'm saying, did he really?
The fans are actually, they're more charitable than Great American Bash 91. Genuinely. It's not the worst.
What I'm asking is, does Lashley think they did him a favor by putting that ECW belt on him in this match? It was almost a kiss of death for him. So
did you hear that the original plan was to have Bobby Lashley immediately turn heel and then be the heel champion in the vein of Big Show before him? So therefore, there really actually was only 2 babyfaces in the match. Wait a minute, are you serious? They wanted, after all that and doing everything in the chamber to Lashley and having him overcome that in Vince's mind, then you want to say, I'm turning heel? Now the crowd turned on everybody that night at the end, so maybe it was a heel turn that they said, well, they're booing him.
Hey, they're booing you. You smart ass.
So, this is the first time I watched this show all the way through. I don't think the reaction was quite as bad as Great American Bash 91 or the ECW on Sci-Fi episode 8 from the Hammerstein Ballroom, but it was still a complete disaster. I actually thought the crowd was slightly more charitable than I thought they were going to be, from all the lore.
I think if you're looking at the South, Augusta, Georgia, this was a 2-hour and some change because it didn't go 3 hours. Example of what they say in the South. Bless your heart. They were just trying, like, we feel so bad for you. We're just going to try to do whatever we can to make it easier on you during these hours.
So Bobby Lashley goes up on the ramp and then celebrates with the ECW title while the traditional Extreme Championship Wrestling pyro goes off behind him. One more thing to add onto this is that a little fun fact that Bob Sapp was actually earmarked to win the ECW title if he had signed with WWE, which of course he didn't in the end. But Bobby Lashley could have actually been Bob Sapp, who then turned heel or whatever, I don't know. Booking the match differently, which of course you would. Let's say you've got the same players. Let's say you haven't got Sabu, you have Bob Holly. How would you set this match up so it wasn't a complete shit show, as it turned out to be?
Okay, so the first thing you do with these multi-person matches, it kind of resembles Royal Rumble. You have the winner of the Royal Rumble, but the people that get eliminated, usually what you try to do as many times as possible or as many instances is start or continue storylines. Much like Punk and Rollins, other people that don't win, they still have something to do after this match and it protects them. I lost, but it's because of you and I have to go and fight you for a while. I'll be back for this, but you and I are going to fight for the next few months. That protects the talent from, because who wouldn't want to go for the world title every night unless you have a personal issue, something happened, it distracts you from that path to the world title. So you have to think in vain of that. Who's going over? Whoever's not going over, how can we pair them up for an angle? My thing would be Bob Holly and Rob Van Dam. When did the cut occur with the table? Was it after this pay-per-view or before? I'm not quite sure.
Before, if memory serves me right. Yeah, I think he must have taken some time off as well.
So we continue that feud. If we can continue that feud, something happens between Rob Van Dam and Bob Holly. Mainly what I would say is, if you want to get the baby faces out, unfortunately, Rob's super popular, but I would try to figure out a way with that to take Rob out, but Bob causes it to happen. Whether it be with that crowbar that he busts him open, hits him to where he can't get up for the frog. Say he hits him in the knee with the crowbar. Rob tries to go up and do the splash, crashes and burns, ends up getting beat off of that. But Bob caused Rob Van Dam the loss. Now there's an issue going there. Maybe something happens with Bob where Rob comes back in or Rob gets stretchered out even because of the pipe or the crowbar to the knee. I'm thinking off the top of my head. Usually you get a few hours or days to do this. So now Rob's eliminated first. That causes the people to not like that. I know. I'd rather have a heel eliminated first, but Vince said we have too many babyfaces, so we have to get rid of somebody. Off the top of my head, if you can figure out something to do with getting Bob or Test out next, keeping Punk in there is really, really important because people want him to win. He's the fresh new face. So we're going to ride that as long as we can to keep Punk in there. So that's another goal we need to do. If Bob or Test could double cross one or the other and end up pinning. So they're working together on Punk, but then one turns or maybe a schoolboy or something, 1, 2, 3. No honor among thieves. One of the heels are out right there. Then we have Lashley, Punk, Big Show. What I do then is maybe have Lashley and Punk wrestle because guess what happens? We've never seen Lashley and Punk in a semi-babyface way. We buy time, we give the fans something they haven't seen before, and they do some cool stuff. Big Show comes in, and we try to make him a monster right now. Double, keeping them both down, maybe even going and double choke slamming both of them right there. Tries to pin both of them, They both kick out 2.5, 2 7/8, whatever. Then Lashley and Punk need to work together to get Big Show eliminated. Big Show gets eliminated, and I know it's not what Vince wants, but we got babyface versus babyface, and those guys put on a hell of a show. And Lashley eventually goes over Punk, maybe spears him through a pod, and does some other finish to him or something like that. But Punk really gets over and makes a showing for himself, maybe almost tapping out Lashley. Lashley figured out a way out of the Anaconda device, and maybe Lashley tries to submit Punk, but ends up hitting him with the spear. And if they wanted Lashley over, it's Lashley over Punk. This is off the top of my head, but I'm thinking this way, fans aren't going to crap on it as much because Punk made it till the end. We got what we needed. They got Big Show eliminated, and we saw a match that we hadn't seen before. Now, backing up, when they were in the ring together before Big Show, it was mostly wrestling and clean stuff and not going for broke. But when they're in there at the end, they're throwing each other into the cage. There might be blood. It might be that ECW style match with a very extreme finish that they can think of with Lashley going over. That's off the top of my head what I would think of doing.
Did you text me or something earlier in the week and said I would have had Big Show lose first? Or did someone else say that?
I said that, I think, to you. I would have Big Show lose first because he's the one they did not want to win. But if you're going to have him in toward the end, utilize him as a giant double choke slam, double moves, and then you're chopping the tree down, and then finally, maybe they go work together. Punk, they both pick him up in a fireman's carry. Punk hits him with the go to sleep. He bounces off the ropes. Lashley's spear, 1, 2, 3. That would be a moment there. And then two baby faces in that vein, I think would have the attention of the fans. Like, oh, we didn't expect these two to be the last two. We expected to get screwed over with the Big Show last, or Test, or Bob Holly. But see how people can spin off? Now you have Lashley versus Punk in rematches for the ECW title right there. So that's kind of the way I would see it off the top of my head.
Right, everybody. Stevie and I have had a chat. We've realised just how long this episode was going to be, and there's so much we want to get to that we're actually going to hold off on maybe some of the most interesting stories until next week's episode. That is going to be Stevie trying to get himself fired that night. That is Paul Heyman getting fired, and we're going to go really deep dive into that. That is going to be, what was the other thing as well that we had? Sort of more of a deep dive on WWECW and just the more general problems of why that just didn't work out at all. So we're going to be talking about all that, and we might even solicit your questions and comments about this time period, I guess, as well as all the regular news and what went wrong and everything else. So that is for you all to look forward to next week. But now we're going to be talking about a bit of news and what went wrong that we're going to start off with, and that is going to be Jey Uso doing his rope dive from the week before on WWE Raw, and now all of a sudden he's JT Smith, and now he's botching on purpose, it seems to be. So Stevie, what went wrong? Or what did go wrong? Because you weren't that convinced it was wrong.
Thank you, James. Yeah, I'm not totally convinced that this is a what went wrong, or maybe the first one was a what went wrong, and they're deciding to run with it. Also, I have some viewpoints that people may disagree with about if they are doing this on purpose leading up to WrestleMania against Gunther. I really do believe it's not the right way to go, and it's going to hurt one or both talents, meaning Jey Uso and or Gunther, depending upon the finish at WrestleMania. But we're going to take a look right here. By the way, I don't remember this. I know they spoke about it in a backstage promo with Jey, or he kind of made a joke about it, but this kind of like is a good thing about wrestling. I didn't remember this. It must not have been that bad where I was like, oh, I mean, he doesn't have a board with nails in his back, so I guess he's already got that going on for him. All right, let's play it. I'm such a fan of Jey Uso, by the way, and so happy to see him getting opportunity. Oh, I do remember that now. Yeah. He laughed it off. That's what I love about Jey, by the way. That's what I love about him, and why I believe he's one of the most over baby faces in wrestling. He's not so like rigid and it's got to be right. He goes with the flow. His promos, I remember when he was with Roman Reigns and they finally started letting him talk, I think when Jimmy was out. I was like, this guy's a star. He really is. I don't know how long it's going to take, how they're going to present him, but he is a star. And what Jay does, he makes, that face tells you the story right there. He makes it fun. Even when he does something like that, it's not a joke. It's not him like laughing in a way that people can't relate to, but he kind of knows it's messed up. He rolled back in. We'll play it again. The yeets right there. I did this on ROH. He even did a better job than I did. But when he gets up, we didn't get the whole clip, but he's laughing. I remember that. He got there like kind of, oh, what are you going to do? And that like Rob Van Dam would do, oh, whatever. So it's a very cool way to acknowledge that something did go wrong, but I made up for it. And that's the key to wrestling. They kind of knew he made a mistake. He admitted to the mistake. They're not going to say you effed up or anything, but I bet they kind of laughed with him and they were more excited about him and what he was going to do next.
Do you think he slipped, or do you just think he just didn't get the bounce from his legs?
He didn't get the clearance, that's for sure. As we're looking right here, there it is. Now, what I would say is, because usually, dude, we do it a million times. You look at it right here, it's usually just the front flip over that you need to clear. But he knew right away, I think his face. He's like, I'm not going to make it. And then he just kind of did that. Now, thank God he was able to flip and he didn't go straight down, but I'm sure Waller and Theory would have caught him. But I'm going to look right here. He's just got a little bit of a, yeah, he's kind of like, yeah. And then he's rolling into the ring, James, to look at the hard camera and be like, nah, it happens to everybody, I guess. But yeah, I'm just such a fan. And this is the thing that makes somebody go from even just a star to a superstar, that you're so comfortable in your own skin and your character and you just kind of flow with it. Even when there's a mistake, how many times do we see, and I hate to pick on them, how many times do we see the girls make a mistake, go right back to it, and like verbatim, the spot is done A, B, C, D, E again. And sometimes they mess it up the second time. So what do? A, B, C, D, E again. And not just kind of laugh it off, shrug at the camera and say, Randy Orton does that great too. Remember when one of Jinder's guys, that's when he started doing the belly back onto the announce table. But the first time was a complete what went wrong because he didn't expect the kid to bounce off. And Randy goes, ooh, like walks and made it like, that's a magical moment in wrestling that everybody, and then it turns into actually a repeated spot that Randy does that people right up there with the DDT off the second rope and the RKO and the punt, they want to see somebody, once somebody swings for a clothesline by that table, oh no, here we go. And Brandon's going to drop you, So it's when you can turn a negative into a positive, and that's what Jay does really better than anybody else with his natural charisma, natural poise, and natural presence. You might be like, man, you're a Jey Uso fanboy. You're damn right I am. Skinny guys unite.
Do you want to compare this? I'm sorry. Do you want to compare this to Top Dollar?
You called him something different.
Well, everyone calls him Flop Dollar after this. To the point that he actually claimed, I think he's called AJ Francis, that he claimed that he told the commentators to start calling him Flop Dollar, which I wouldn't have told the commentators that. I would have said, can you just ignore it?
I don't know. That to me sounds like a theory. No, I don't know about that. But I will say this, him as AJ Francis in TNA, I saw some of the work he did with Joe Hendry when they had an angle together. He did really, really good work. And I think they're going to bring, he's already been back twice. They may bring him back a third time because I think they didn't do what they could have done with Hit Row. I know what they were trying to do, but man, it was just such a weird dynamic. But I feel like he had something. Well, he's a big dude. He originally was the host of that treasure show where they went into the storage lockers and the self-storage and found all the old outfits and stuff. Remember he hosted that?
No,
Lost
I don't.
Treasures or
I know
WWE Lost
like
Treasures
the
or something.
I never watched that. I never watched that.
He was the host.
If we got it here, it's very hard. It's fine.
I believe he was the host of that, and then he became a wrestler. So let's take a. I think what we're seeing right here, it's like kind of like when Dreamer does the ECW and sometimes misses the corner with the drop kick. This is like where you pump it up so much and then, let's see. Yeah,
we can't
hear
Michael Cole's commentary, but it's excellent.
I meant to do that.
They even acknowledge it on commentary afterwards, where Top Dollar doesn't usually do these kinds of high risk thingies, and then he flops over it. And after there's a reason why he doesn't do those high risk moves.
Here he goes. Whoa! That's the crowd, right?
You see, he sort of got caught under the bottom rope there. I'm wondering if there's like some sort of potential issue. Do you know what I mean? If you like snap your head back or something.
My thing would be if anybody can Photoshop in or do graphics of an inversion table, like he's flying into an inversion table or something. But dude, no joke though. Look at his head. He could very easily have caught his head and did the thing back. You know what I mean? He could have broke his neck. He did basically, seriously, the run. You try to dive over and clear it, but even that little bit, like Jay, he didn't clear it. It was essentially the same kind of what went wrong for him and Top Dollar. But at the same time, like when you clear over that, dude, you feel like you're so much higher. And it's really, you're only clearing it by maybe 6 to 8 inches, something like that. It's definitely a lot difficult, but he could have really broke his neck. Oh no. Oh no. This guy here in the LWO, you know what part he played? He played the part of Dr. Stevie from the TNA Final Resolution watch along on Patreon, where Mick Foley hit Raven with the shopping cart, but I went flying back. He didn't touch him, but watch. Oh my God, I got to sell. He didn't even hit this guy right here. Watch. Close up. He didn't hit anybody, and they all. He didn't hit.
No, he hit somebody. He hit the bald guy there.
He hit Ray Rowe or Eric Rowe.
Yeah. Or
Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. One or the other. But look, even Ivar sold. He's not even, he's like, look at all the space right there. Oh, that's great. Brother, I didn't feel a thing.
Safest worker in the world.
Oh my God. I love it. I love pro wrestling. Oh, dear. It's great. It's fun.
It's the joy, isn't it? I mean, I think to a non-wrestling... What's the old saying? It's like, to a wrestling fan, no explanation needed. To a non-wrestling fan, no explanation will ever be sufficient. All right. That should bring wrestling and non-wrestling fans together, that clip.
For anybody that says, I only criticize everybody and I don't... Well, actually, people say I'm way too hard on myself. We're about to all laugh at me. And not since... a match against Chris Jericho in 1996 in Jim Thorpe, PA, where he also ribbed me into trying to do a tope. This here, the Proving Ground match against Jay Lethal, ROH World Champion and TV Champion. I'm going to show you, James, what went wrong. Stevie Richards trying to be a high flyer. Definitely wrong. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
You've got to play that again. The internet went weird.
All right, here we go.
What was that?
That was pure, unadulterated fear of heights. And just in case, I'm just going to, you know what? This started out great where I basically, I hit Jay or blocked, hit him. It started out great where I had the spring, but I chickened out and I put my feet on the apron. And they knew I was going to do that. Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, and Jay Lethal pulled one of the all-time pranks on me, one of the all-time ribs. They knew I wasn't afraid. They were rubbing my shoulders before the match. You can do it, man. You can do it. It's easy. Once you're in the air, you're going to want to do dives all the time. And I go, like, are you sure? Yeah, man, just go out there. You'll do it. We believe in you. I'm like, they got me. They knew. They knew I was such an ass-heavy guy and afraid. I mean, what can I say? That's worse than Top Dollar. That's worse than Jey Uso. That's literally, I'm laying on the mat right now going, oh, got me.
But you say you stayed safe, in fairness.
That would be the safest way if you were going to do a dive. Jump over, land on your feet, and just fall on the guy very gently. That's a Stevie Richards dive.
So we're going to do a bit of news now. John Cena's latest promo. You watched this. You were particularly interested in this because I think on the first week, that interview that John did, the first one was in Brussels, got a lot of praise. And I think you might have been one of the only sort of well-known dissenting voices saying, hang on, there's a lot missing here from this promo. So we've now got part 2. With Cena coming out, and it was in Glasgow this time, on WWE Raw, of course. Then Cody comes out once again to interrupt, and then it plays out a little bit differently. So, I don't know if this is a what went wrong or what went right segment, but comparing the first week to the second week of basically the same segment, I guess.
Well, we can be completely like arrogant and say that they're watching us, which they might be, but I think it's more common sense. Week 1, it wasn't so much Cena's promo. It was the interaction with Cody after they had literally beat him up almost for real at Elimination Chamber. So think about it. He's basically came out to Miz TV on SmackDown, just ran in, hit Miz with the crossroads, showed intensity. Miz didn't even do anything. You see what I mean? Like, he was angrier at Miz than he was at Cena. With Cena, he just said, stop being a whiny bitch. And that was it. This week, and what I said on the show last week was, why didn't Cody come out all fired up and say, you know what? I don't want to wait till WrestleMania. Let's fight right here, right now, and starts taking off. And Cena chickens out. Cena leaves. That's what I said it should have happened week 1. They did that here. That's where, I said, okay, now we got something. Although I still feel like Cody and Cena were so close to WrestleMania, maybe we don't have them interact. Maybe we anticipate the actual match. Maybe they talk crap, but they're in separate locations. Maybe they do that split screen picture like they do on ESPN, like Riddle and Seth Rollins. And maybe they do try to find each other, but don't. Something takes them off course to do that. But this was definitely done better. But once again, you're talking about things that are missing. What's missing? What's the one thing that's glaringly missing this close to WrestleMania, especially with Cody versus Cena?
Tell me.
The Rock. Not even on the Titantron. Think about it. Has anybody even mentioned The Rock since Punk's promo about The Rock? It's almost as if they're telling them, do not mention The Rock's name. Sure, he'll be there at the pay-per-view, but nobody. How did Rock get Cena to turn heel? Why did Cena turn heel? Cena already won the Elimination Chamber match. He already had his title shot. And they're like, well, that's why people are asking. Yeah, but after 5-6 weeks, no one's going to ask. I'm sure they'll pick it up after WrestleMania. But why is Cena doing this? He already qualified for the title match at WrestleMania. So what is Rock offering Cena? And what is Cena offering Rock? And why is nobody mentioning The Rock? Why is The Rock not talking about this? That's the thing that's still glaringly missing and wrong with this entire angle.
There's one thing that keeps bugging me, and it happened last week and it happened this week as well. I've said it on Storytime with Dutch, and I made mention of it, and I actually said, because this bugged Dutch to no end, and it was with Ronda Rousey. Ronda would come out, I don't know if she's playing a heel or whatever, let's say she was playing a heel. She would come out smiling and clapping hands and blah, blah, blah. Then she'd get in the ring and then be serious. And my opinion is, it's sort of the same thing with Cody, is why is he going through the exact same machinations every single week where he's going, whoa, with the music and slapping hands with the fans and da-da-da, and seeming so relaxed about the whole situation, and then he goes into acting mode in the ring, and then he starts going into, the promotional rhetoric with it. And there's a bit of a disconnect because, as you said last week, I'm sure, why isn't he more angry about this? Why didn't he at least try and attack Cena last week? For everything you did to me, how dare you? That kind of thing, and I'm going to get revenge. There didn't seem to be like a big desire for revenge on Cody's part. And that's sort of what's been a bit of a disconnect with me still. They've got weeks to, flesh it out, of course.
Yeah, well, the timing of everything, too. They got weeks to flesh it out. When's he going to decide to get intense and really ready for WrestleMania and angry at The Rock and angry at Cena? We're waiting for that. Shouldn't that be an instantaneous thing? And then it's the booking or the creative to keep them apart and keep people interested in the actual match. That's the trick. Yeah, he's a lot more mature than any other wrestler that I ever grew up watching because they would run right to the ring and start fighting. There's a thing about Russo that when I worked with him, whether it's WWE, WWE, or TNA, and other people, and he would talk about this on his show a lot, before we went out, say this happened to Cody, the Elimination Chamber beatdown, all that stuff, everything happened. Cody's next entrance, Russo said, say it's Austin, but we'll talk Cody. Russo or a writer would be there and say, now remember, last week or 2 weeks ago, they left you laying. He popped your eardrum. The Rock is responsible for this. The guy in the ring right now is the one you want to get at. Enter the ring and do your entrance like you can't wait. Don't do all this stuff because you want to get to that guy. That's not as important as getting into the ring and going after Cena or telling Cena you're going to kick his ass. Do you see the different presentation? Right now, we have an NXT entrance. It's like NXT face, NXT entrance. No matter what goes on, even if they killed your kitten, your puppy, your mom, your dad, your husband, your wife, hit the mark, hit the pose, pyro goes off, make sure you get to the ring by this point, hit the pose on the apron, go through the ropes, do your thing so they're all there, do the thing. Their entrance now is the thing. So no matter what, compartmentalize the entrance, then get serious, but they don't understand that the fans are already looking going, he's smiling. Why is he laughing? Why is he happy? It's just wrestling in 2025. I don't get it because the entrance and dare I say some of the matches leading up to the actual match you want to see do not match the storyline that I'd like to follow going into WrestleMania.
I'll do a quick catch up for people who haven't watched it. So John Cena comes out on WWE Raw. This is, I wrote yesterday, but it's actually 2 days ago as we record this. Basically cuts the exact same interview that he did the week before, saying it's all the fans' fault. They've been horrible to him. He threatens to bring the spinner belt back and that he is going to ruin wrestling for everybody, but doesn't particularly sort of explain how. He says that Ric Flair's he's going to beat Ric Flair's 16-time world title reign, take the belt home with him, and that there is nothing the fans can do to stop him. Then Cody Rhodes comes out with a big smile on his face, slapping hands with the fans, etc. And then Cody says to Cena that he made a mistake, and that's saying what he said with Cody in the building. Then Cody says he wants to fight him there and then. He takes the belt off, he puts it in the middle of the ring. If you want the belt, take it. And Cena instead declines and walks off. What do you make of... Yeah, what do you make of that, actually? Because, I mean, it's more like what you wanted from the first week, I guess. But, I mean, where does this leave Cena now?
Well, this is the problem with the whole thing, and that's why I said maybe keeping them completely apart until the match and actually talking crap to each other from distances is the way to go. There's never been, I think, a match with this much anticipation. Obviously, it's Cena turning heel since the Hogan and The Rock match from WrestleMania. I'm not saying there haven't been matches people have been looking. I'm talking about storyline, the heel turn of Cena, a new fresh coat of paint on an angle, and a match we've never seen before. That's what I'm looking at right now, at least in their current characters or iterations. But yeah, the word I think of with the entrance, both entrances of Cody, with the entrances, with him getting in the ring, with his interaction with Cena. I'm not talking about Cena alone cutting the promo. If he just left and did his thing and Cody didn't come out, I think it would be fine. Although no mention of The Rock, no mention why The Rock or why he's with them or what their deal with the devil is at all. But the word that comes to my mind with every single part involving Cody, disconnect. Disconnect. Why are you happy? Why are you coming down? Why are you doing your normal entrance? This isn't a normal situation. Why are you getting in the ring without double-legging Cena and beating the shit out of him? Why aren't security trying to keep you guys away from each other if you're so angry and they did so? They must not have hurt you that bad, right? Where security and the company are not trying to keep you from getting revenge on Cena. And what I would do from Adam Pearce's perspective, keep them apart and they never are near each other because this match needs to happen. If they get within 10 feet of each other, they're going to kill each other and the match is going to be canceled. Isn't that easy enough to explain? Then sprinkle in occasionally The Rock on his phone in portrait mode, talking crap about Cody. And wouldn't you people like to know why Cena and I are together? You're going to find out at WrestleMania. So at least we got something. So much disconnect. And in this day and age, if people can't understand and digest it right away, what do, James? Change channel. Too hard to understand.
Now we're going to finish on this bit of news, and happily, it's very, very good news indeed. Chris Bey is now walking, sometimes unaided. I mean, generally, he's still struggling, of course, with mobility. He's still in recovery, but it's almost miraculous, given the percentage he was given that basically he was probably going to be quadriplegic or paraplegic, whatever, for the rest of his life. It was something like 10 to 25% he was offered. And he's essentially beat those odds, quite frankly, and his recovery is coming along very, very well for somebody who had such a devastating injury. TNA wrestler Chris Bey on October 27th, 2024 was wrestling in a tag team match with Ace Austin against tag team champions the Hardy Boys. Now, this is from Chris's own mouth on Chris Van Vliet show. Here's what happened. So, quote, "First time we wrestled the Hardys, we didn't have a lot of time. This time we had more time, so we were all confident and comfortable with what we were doing. I'm in there with my best friend and two of my idols. It's a night off, essentially." And then I'm going to skip away a couple of sentences. "As soon as it goes wrong, you don't notice what's wrong. You just know something isn't right. I felt a jolt. It was a neck breaker. We missed each other, Matt and I, by an inch. I felt a jolt, and I felt a little bit of discomfort." From there, Jeff Hardy, through miscommunication, almost lands a swanton bomb on him, but then realizes that something's wrong, and he basically drops a leg instead, misses him by a mile. I mean, there's always, the risk of the ring bouncing as well afterwards, which is a risky thing. But at this point, Chris can't move his toes, he can't raise his arm, and he's been essentially paralyzed. He was rushed to a Detroit hospital where Chris underwent neck and spinal fusion surgery and was given very low odds of making any kind of realistic recovery, which he's happily beaten.
Yeah, this is the best way to end any episode. I get a little emotional thinking about this, and I have been in communication with Chris off and on since this. This is definitely near and dear to my fear, from the guardrail incident, and this is way, way worse. Way, way worse. And miracles do happen, and these are some of the conversations that I personally have with Chris from time to time, either via text or phone, that miracles do happen, and be a miracle, Chris. Don't listen to anybody that's going to tell you anything. I don't think anybody told him anything negative about recovery, amount of recovery time. Obviously, it's not a week or a month or maybe even a year before whatever percentage of his ability, forgive me, like I said, I get emotional about it. Nobody knows what percentage, but one thing we do know at this point, the percentage is going up. The percentage is going up because what was the percentage, like 10% or a very low percent that he was going to ever be able to walk again, much less do anything functionally with his body. And this is what really from last week with Moxley, and I'm not trying to lump it in with that, I'm just giving it as an example. This is why we do the show that we do. This is why I did the wrestling analysis channel. This is why I try to speak from a position of compassion and, what should I say, cautionary tales of things in the past that I was involved with. And something as little as this was probably nowhere near, I'm not sure the exact spot. This is nowhere near as dangerous or risky as anything else that Chris Bey or other people have ever done, especially Chris being an amazingly gifted athlete to be able to do really special stuff. The weirdest injuries occur on the most harmless looking type thing. And I'm only guessing that it was nothing like a big spot that did it. But the focus is on Chris. The focus is on Chris's road to recovery. The focus is on the miracle that Chris is living every day and going in that direction. And there's something you said in the notes here that he's not ruled out a potential return to wrestling. Now, I know we're all gasping right now at the mere thought of him getting back in a ring at any point in his life. But I want to say this. I would rather Chris aim for the stars and just come in a little short of those. In other words, to get himself back into a point where he doesn't need a walker, a cane, assistance. He's working out. He's got full feeling back, or mostly full feeling back in all extremities and his spine. And he's able to like almost kind of, not forget, but move so far past it that it's surreal that it even happened. If he aims for just, all I want to do is be able to walk with a walker. Well, that's all you're going to be able to do. Being able to aim to say, I'm going to return to the ring and have a match. And I'm going to return to the ring without any assistance and climb through those ropes and do a spot. If you come up short and you have a very 100% viable, functioning life, then you achieved everything. But if you don't aim that far and even come up a little bit short, then you're always going to, I guess, limit what you do in your road to recovery. And I'm near tears of joy because this is a good kid and a good human being, not just a great wrestler, not just a great athlete, but a guy that I've gotten to know him for a very short amount of time after this and know that he has a great heart. And hopefully what he learned in the business, if he still has the itch to be involved, I would say, Chris, commentary, writing, creative, talent relations, maybe, just maybe, picking up the mantle from a more active role and responsibility to protect other talent as much as possible. So if your mission statement, Chris, is to still be involved in wrestling, aim for having a match. But I believe your calling right now is to be that person that can, right in front of somebody's face, be the voice of reason and speak from experience to prevent this from ever happening again to another human being. I love you, man. I love you, Chris. And I think you can be an inspiration in so many different ways in and out of professional wrestling. And do not throw away that opportunity. And I know you won't, because you already spoken about doing it.
With Chris, once again, when you said, potential return to wrestling, because once again, I was talking about this with Dutch yesterday. I was like, a sharp intake of breath. But I wonder if he ever did have another match. I mean, you probably know this as well because you've had your own neck injuries. I mean, is it tough to? I don't want to say self-conscious, but is it tough to stop second-guessing things that you do in the ring once you've had a really bad injury like that can almost, cause like you before? I know it's a completely different thing, but the what went wrong when you dived over the rope to do a dive and then you didn't because you second-guessed it. It can sort of affect your performance in that way.
Oh, absolutely. You have to be completely unaware of the things that have actually happened in your life and career when you get in the ring. If you're thinking, it's like football. If you're thinking and overthinking and trying to be careful, you usually get hurt. That's usually when you do a half-pregnant back bump, Like Chris, I'd be concerned with taking a bump right now, and therefore I shouldn't take a bump unless I'm all in and I know that I can last, and freak injuries happen. That's the thing. this show and what I've done previous to this and what we're doing now, this adds to the overthinking. It works here because I need to overthink and overanalyze to break stuff down. But when I get into a ring as a competitive, active wrestler, I'm invincible. And if I get hurt, doesn't matter. Finish the match. Doesn't matter. That's got to be the attitude. And good, bad, or indifferent, that has to be a better attitude for Chris, that he can never get hurt again. Because if he says, what if I get hurt again? Don't get back in the ring. That's the worst idea. But I think it's more of, like I said, a psychological thing to mind F himself in a positive way to get as far as he can on the road to recovery, and whatever he gets, that's going to be awesome. Which it's already, like I said, even months, just a few months after this injury, to be improving. Usually I've heard that in the first 2 to 4 weeks, that is the cap for how much is going to come back. But he's proven that wrong.
Now, because you've not seen this yet, I said I was going to show you this at the end. So I'm going to share the screen, and this is from Chris Bey Benefit Show by FCW. Just, I think, a couple of days ago, in fact. So we just do bear with me. I'm going to leave this in the show while we do it. And here we go. I've got the audio really down at the moment, but this is Chris Bey coming out, basically getting his flowers, I guess, for the benefit show and making everybody happy as well. I'll forward through a tiny bit.
That's amazing. My God.
I believe he gets in the ring later as well in this video, so I'll forward it through a little bit. And he does make, I believe, he takes some steps unaided as well in the ring.
Oh my God. I kind of wish I saw it before now. He got through the ropes easier than I did when I did Devon's videos.
There we go. And he cuts an interview afterwards as well. So,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I should have showed you that beforehand.
That's okay. No, I mean, that's,
yeah.
You know, they want reaction videos. That's I don't mind reacting to that stuff like this. I just, seeing that guy, man, that's something. Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. You know, we all have this thing in us where there's that fear. Is this going to be it or whatever? And he must have thought his life at one point was completely over, probably many points. And just seeing that, I mean, this is a guy that pretty much, like I said, had almost, you know, a very low percentage chance of walking again. And here he is walking down steps, standing up straight on a stage without any assistance, walking on his own, under his own power, down steps, down an aisleway. Things we could take it for granted. All of us take for granted. Then, like, you know, his arm strength must have been weak and everything. You know, I don't know the extent of the paralysis. Grabs the post, walks up there, goes through the ropes, stand in an unstable ring that moves and kind of flows like waves. And there he is. Sorry.
Yes. No, please don't be.
Great stuff.
There's one more thing, I guess, I wanted to ask, and it's a very serious thing, because you'll have shared this because you've broken your neck. You'll know the fear that very few people hopefully ever go through, but you'll know the fear of that Chris went through, where you can't move your extremities, your neck's been broken, and that immediate thing of what is next. How do I react? I can't do basically, because I believe Chris also said, I don't know if I've written this down here, he was trying to, as a joke, or something like that to raise his arm when he was being stretched out to let people know he was okay, or something like that for the Hardys, but he couldn't do it, and that's when, the fear really kicked in for him. With you, when did the feeling start coming back in, your fingers? You could start moving stuff again and start feeling like halfway normal after your neck issues?
Well, you're referring to the guardrail spot with Terry Funk,
yes,
correct?
I am, yeah.
I'm still trying to gather. I'm sorry. It took about a good hour for me to get feeling back in my legs. I did have most in my arms, but my legs, they called it transient quadriplegia. Now, I did have pins and needles in my arms, but I could move my fingers. Legs were a no-go until pretty much I got to the hospital. So I was in the ring for a while. Maybe towards the end of that time, I started to feel like I could at least wiggle a toe or two. But when I was actually legitimately in the hospital getting worked on, that's when I kind of felt. And then it was the pain, the burning. Well, the burning happened once the guardrail hit me, I should say. Then nothing. Tears, fear, all that stuff, not knowing. There was no joking around. I was like, this is the end of my life. I can't move. I don't have any money. I don't have any future. I don't have really any skills at this point that can carry me outside of wrestling. I don't have feeling in my life. It's all going through your mind. So, my thing at least was explainable. There's a guardrail dropped on the base of your neck. Chris's injury could happen to anybody at any time if one little bump goes wrong. So I don't tell wrestlers to fear, but I do tell them, prepare, be aware, be educated, and have a backup plan. Have a backup plan. That means save, invest your money, live well beneath your means, do whatever you can. And guess what happens? If you never had an injury, if you're like The Miz, maybe one injury in his career, if you're blessed enough to have that, and you still saved, invest, and you were really careful, and you were aware, God, I got to prepare like whatever financial burden I'm going to be on my family, my wife, my kids, whatever it might be. I need to make sure everything's good to make it at least not any more stressful when I'm going to make it by having this condition. If that doesn't happen, that's great. But you should always never assume that you're going to come out of this business as much as what you went into it. We all come out of it less.
To echo your sentiments, I guess, to finish off the show, Chris Bey, please get, even more better than you already are. I mean, you've already sort of like, broke the expectations of, most of the doctors and everything like that, and most people who, know the extent of the injury, and, best of luck to you in your continued recovery. I know Stevie's going to text you pretty much as soon as we're done recording this as well, and, give you a hearty congratulations and continue your recovery.
Actually, I'm going to tell him how much heat he has with me right now because he made me cry during the show. That's what I mean. Hey, I challenge
for a good reason, if nothing else.
Yeah, I challenge you though, Chris. Here's some psychology. Yes, I dare you. You're not going to be able to wrestle again. You're not going to be able to wrestle again. There's no way, no how. It would take a miracle for you to get that far in your road to recovery. So I challenge you to do it. I dare you to do it. And I also know and believe you can do it. But I don't want you to wrestle again. Stop it. Yeah. Yeah.
Get yourself physically to the point where you can do it, and then don't. I think, is that about right?
Yeah. You get to the point where you can, and I'm going to stop you. How about this?
Yeah.
All you got to do, become a commentator, become somebody. You know what the key to getting over is? 3 letters. Aha. There you go. That's all you need to do.
Those 4 letters. How dare you?
No, some people say the H is silent.
I know I've got to do AH-HA. That's how I do it.
All right.
It's a 2-syllable
comment
thing.
below. Let me know.
I don't know. You can have 2 syllables.
Well, I just text Jeff Jarrett too and ask him. He's mad enough anyway.
Ooh, yeah, we should do. I mean, I've got to the point where I just put, what do I do? I'm just sending you 2 peace signs.
Yeah, but he does
something.
that.
I don't know how I spell it. Okay, we're going to shut down the show. So next week, sort of on the fly, we're going to be finishing up December to Dismember, sort of the story surrounding the pay-per-view rather than the pay-per-view itself. We're going to be talking more news, more what went wrong, all the good stuff you expect. So we'll see you again next Wednesday. So over to you, Stevie, to take us out with all the good stuff and especially the Patreon.
Thank you very much. Did you see what I mean? Post cry, it's hard to do the closing. Thank you, James. Yes, we have plenty of stuff going on. James Romero YouTube channel, along with another one we're talking about that you all should look forward to. We'll let you know when it definitely becomes a real thing and it becomes live. Stevie Richards Fitness, also cameo.com/Stevie Richards. Thank you to everybody for the Cameo video request. Patreon.com/Stevie Richards. By the way, I will be putting a post up this week asking our Patreon supporters for something really cool that we're trying to change up the ending here as the names are scrolling past. So we're going to surprise James and everybody with that. I'm going to post this week and ask the people for something to add to the end of the show. And we appreciate it if you can do that. Check it out. Watch-alongs every Monday. Like I said, the Luna Fashan intergender cage match just went up this past episode. In each and every Monday, new watch-alongs, also premium content, behind the scenes, production calls, and other things. Anything that we do during the week, we try to clue you in on and see behind the scenes how the Stevie Richards Show works until we change everything in the next episode, which we'll have another video on Patreon. That's my fault. I'm sorry. Trying to get those 8K cameras and everything in line for the show. So that is about it. Thank you so much for watching episode 39. Once again, Chris Bey, God bless you. That's awesome, man. We are pulling for you. We will see each and every one of you next week for the final nail in the coffin of the WWE ECW in episode 40. See you next week.